Awesome to have you here. I hope you really enjoyed what you saw yesterday. And this is all about having an extended chat about that video, looking back at everything we revealed and just going into more detail and having some lovely chats where we can bring you in and answer your questions along the way. First, why don't we have a look at that big old video we dropped yesterday? Sorry, image. We're not going to re-roll the whole 10 minutes. So yeah, this is the amazing roadmap we dropped yesterday. It's been amazing to see how many of you are hype about it. We love that you've loved it. And I hope it's really delivered on what you've been looking to see. Now, this isn't a show about reveals. We did all that yesterday, so don't tune in expecting we've held some big, juicy information for you, but it is a panel-packed show. So in this show, we're going to give you the opportunity to talk to us as we cover what the future looks like across various areas of the game. During those chats, we'll also be sure to cover some of our the context around our announcements and give some extra indications on what you can expect from the content in the plan.
So most importantly, this is really about having an opportunity to spend some time with you. We love doing a month ahead style video, by the way, and we didn't want to lose that community feelings in the live stream. So throughout the show, please do interact with us, drop us any questions and all that fun stuff in the chat. We're here, we're reading, and we'll bring you into the conversation as much as we can.
I was a little disappointed you didn't do a Yuey moment then. Well, sort of throwback.
Wow.
Look, we've got lots ahead of us.
At some point.
Yeah, so why don't you grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax.
No, not Hooli. No.
I need my own little intro. I was talking about whose I should steal for this, and apparently I defaulted to Protox. But anyway, seriously, pop on that second monitor if you're sitting there making the pickaxe of life and death from our recent update. However you like to watch the show, prepare for 3 hours of deep RuneScape chat. Lovely stuff.
So here's what's coming up over the rest of the show. We'll begin with a chat with Mod Markos and Mick about the future of RuneScape. This is a chat about the bigger picture, thinking of all the vision for where we're going. Apologies on that, is actually going to be only Mod Markos.
Yeah. And next also we'll be sitting down to talk a little bit about some nearer term releases as well. The Gate of Lydness Skilling Boss, which we're really, really excited about talking about that, and Group Ironman. Now, as these projects are still in development, don't expect like full-blown reveals like we've done on some of our streams before. These are still very much in that, getting towards that point, but we do want to chat a little bit more about what we showed in RS Ahead.
Then it's onto the panel-style chats. We're dropping 3 back-to-back lore, skilling, and combat in that order. And that's where you'll find knowledge experts of each of those areas. So stick with us for those questions, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So just before we hit the show, we talked about interacting with you. Hello, chat. Your chat is over there for us. Hi. What are you most looking forward to hearing more about today? What should we be paying attention to most as we're going through these panels? Really looking forward to seeing what you want to hear most about.
We are reading this live, by the way.
You'll get Mark is not joining us. We've got Markos though. Combat, lovely.
Combat.
GM.
Combat.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, chat.
So quick, too quick, too quick. Oh my god.
Lots of GIM. I'm seeing lots of GIM, lots of
everything.
Boss.
Halloween.
Okay,
everything.
So basically everything. So I'm glad we made a 3-hour show. Right. So this is gonna be a fun one. I can feel it. It's gonna be good. Right. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the first ever RuneScape Ahead Expanded, and we're gonna start by talking about the future of RuneScape with Mod Markos. And that's how it happens, the magic in the studio.
Hello.
Hello, Mod Markos.
Hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, good.
How are
You've been
you?
sitting there very quietly, patiently,
Yeah,
just slightly out of shot.
yeah, just worried about making a noise, basically.
Yeah, basically. So.
But yes, welcome back after that quick little logo sting, where we'll talk through the magic of zooming out of a camera and the shot. And we're joined by the one special guest who is here with us. So please allow me to introduce Mod Marko, executive producer of RuneScape. How are you?
I am good, thank you. It's good to be back on the stream.
Excellent,
Now,
excellent.
chat, this is where you come in. The wonderful Modazana is looking at chat and gathering questions for us. We've got a bunch of our own to kick things off, and we've got plenty to get through. But we'll be keeping an eye on you guys in the chat. So do drop us questions as we go, and we can bring those in and talk about the bigger picture and the future direction of the game questions. So, Markos, I'm going to start firstly. You discussed on the post-roadmap reveal back in, what was it, May, that RuneScape had gone under this like transformation internally. How is that going, and how does it kind of tie into what we saw the other day?
Yeah, it's well, firstly, I can't believe it's like 3 months already since we were like sat on the sofa going through it. But secondly, I've been kind of delighted with how it's done. It's obviously ultimately all down to the team and like their unique sets of skills in terms of being able to create like excellent content for the game and so on. But yeah, been really pleased with how it's kind of shaped up. Obviously, the initial roadmap reveal a few months ago. I feel like we've been doing an excellent job in delivering to that, and the response I've seen to the recent updates has been excellent. It seems like players are really enjoying it. Yeah, now the next step is obviously we've now revealed it further into the future, so it's now about that continual delivery. And the things we talked a bit about before is in terms of making sure that players are getting really good value for their subscriptions, so they're getting lots of good updates on a regular basis, and it's also like a good spread of update types, so we're mixing it well between quests and skills and like PVM content and so on. So, and I've been like really pleased with kind of how that's going and how it's going into the future. Like we've obviously had a really strong like month of updates already, and then obviously got the skilling boss in September and stuff. There's some really cool updates coming quite soon as well.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited as well about the little updates we're peppering in between them as well. We've got obviously the Conjure coming up, which I know the players have been asking for loads. We managed to get that into the development section. It's really, really cool. I'll say to you,
I'm currently reading.
I'll let you read chat. I'll ask the
yeah,
next question.
you ask the question.
So you were talking about that then, and you're really happy about that. How do you feel about the progress we've made so far when it comes to RuneScape in general? Do you feel how are you feeling about what the progress we've made over the past 3 months, not just as a team but externally? What is it to you that kind of stands out most that you're happiest that you've seen from the team?
Yeah, I think, well, obviously, I've been delighted with kind of how well all of the updates have been like executed and released and things like that's been like, it's the bread and butter of what we do and stuff, and that's been really, really good. And also just generally the team's enthusiasm, like they've been working really well against the roadmap, and we've been working progressively in those months to try and extend the horizon line for the roadmap. So it's going from like a shorter period of like 6 months to say more like a couple of 2 to 3 years, say. And then obviously the first step of kind of revealing that is what we did yesterday in terms of the video and the updates and things there as well. So yeah, really pleased about that. And I was obviously like watching and reading the feedback and so on last night kind of from the roadmap reveal, and I was really pleased to see that the community have recognised the fact that obviously we're making a really conscious effort to be more like visible and communicating more and getting a bit more clarity around what people are actually getting in the future. So that's been really pleasing as well. So it's not just the development team; it's all like the people like yourselves and like marketing and all the video team and so on. Like it's a collaborative effort across everyone in the studio, pretty much.
That's awesome. It's funny you were saying about that as well, because obviously for us it's amazing that we get to represent the team, but it is worth saying, obviously, as you said, it's a huge team of people that come together to even bring these communications to life. And I'm sure some people were in chat. I didn't get to look at chat because I was looking at Markos, got probably excited when you were talking about trying to create a 3-year horizon line of plans, you know, going from seeing 3 months ahead to now a year, and then internally thinking even beyond that, I'm sure will be exciting for a lot of scapers out there.
We're in the long haul, people. We're in the long haul, so yeah. Obviously, speaking of which, we obviously recently launched a player survey, which was obviously quite important in the RuneScape world, which has obviously had some direct questions about paid offerings, about the membership, like Treasure Hunter. So can you tell us more about that at all?
Yeah, so obviously there's quite a few questions in the chat I've seen about that as well already. Yes, so it's obviously a hot topic. So the best way to describe it probably is that survey was the start of a dialogue, I guess. So we haven't really particularly directly discussed things like the MTX features with players before. So this is the start of an ongoing dialogue, is the way we're seeing it. So there'll be some follow-up next week where there'll be like, we'll be furthering the dialogue with players. There'll be like there'll probably be a news post from ModPips, kind of like talking about like the next steps of that dialogue, and that should be kind of like in the next week or so, I'd expect.
Really exciting stuff. Awesome. And speaking of surveys, obviously that's one survey we did.
Yep.
The player voice survey we did back in May, right after the roadmap reveal. That's been a huge part of how we've planned everything, right? That was a big theme of what we showed yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So some of the people who play old school and stuff as well, they'll be familiar, like we do these surveys on a regular basis, and it gives us a really good insight into kind of what exactly do our players want from the game. So you're paying your monthly subscription, so what is it you actually want for that, and like what are the kind of features that will get you really excited? And obviously, it's similar. The team have a similar thing. They want to get good data around like exactly like what should we be making and things like that as well. So it's been like extremely significant in terms of how we've been building the longer term roadmap for the game, I'd say. So obviously there was kind of like rankings of like features that people most wanted and stuff like that. So we've been looking at the most popular features to see how we can actually get them in the roadmap, and that's also influenced our decisions around some of the things around how we tackle storylines. In particular, there was quite a lot of feedback around finishing storylines, I think, rather than starting new ones and so on. Mm-hmm. And then some of the other bigger things revealed in the roadmap were all like very directly influenced by it.
Yeah, I know there was, the chat kind of went crazy yesterday, didn't they, when we revealed that the originally labeled Bill Rat quest was now Desert Storyline. That was a really cool moment yesterday.
So many of you went crazy over it. That was...
Yeah, By the way, if you were there, thank you for joining that. We love seeing that moment where the community comes out and reacts in real time. It's amazing. It makes what makes it special to be making this stuff for you and seeing your excitement for it.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about, I think you've kind of talked to it a lot already, so there might not be too much to add, but as we look ahead to 2025, we've just revealed almost half the year, obviously given a little bit of indication of something beyond that. For you, what are the key priorities driving a lot of decision and plans that are going into RuneScape? What is it really, as you think about 2025, that you want to see RuneScape kind of achieve?
Yeah, so it's continuing to deliver on the promise of what we've been talking about with the roadmaps and things. So obviously revealing it is only part of it. That's when a lot of the hard work starts in terms of actually designing the features and like building them and so on. So for me, the key thing is continuing to deliver like really good updates for all the player base, and continuing to have more of an open dialogue. So we've got obviously things like the RuneScape Ahead that went out yesterday. That's not going to be a one-off. We'll keep doing those on a regular cadence. Obviously, we've kind of got RuneFest next year as well, which would be like a major communication beat for us too. So yeah, there's kind of a lot we can do there, I think.
We've got a lot of live questions actually, so we definitely will need to get some of those in. Before we do,
this is an important one.
Before we do, why don't we talk a little bit about the long term, since we're on the subject of 2025. So obviously what we revealed yesterday was very much a content roadmap. Is there anything else kind of longer term that we're thinking about that we didn't want to commit to yesterday, or anything that you'd like to mention that we're kind of considering when it comes to players? Anything from the survey really that
as I mentioned, we kind of looked at the things that came top in the survey and got particularly positive responses. One of those was like the questions around the API. So at the moment, that's definitely something we're interested in exploring. Like it's obviously an extremely long technical project to implement. So this is more like us just getting our head around it. It's something we want to do in the long term, but we'll have more updates on that like in the future. But it's something that will take a while to build. So we're kind of like beginning to think about it now, but it's some way off.
Yeah, I should caveat, this is part of the fun of being transparent with you. We can drop little nuggets of information that these conversations have been happening. But as you mentioned, right, it's something we're looking at and assessing the technical feasibility of. But I'm sure there's a lot of you out there, I know especially a lot of our creators will be very happy that it's on our radar and it's something we're actively considering and looking into, which is kind of cool.
Should we go into some live questions?
Yes.
Yes. So thank you to Mod Azana, who is very kindly feeding in the live questions in for us. I suppose let's go for the first one by Scotty to Saints. In one of the Discord stages, Mod Markos said he would try to look into whether the player avatar refresh project could be revisited. Is there anything you can share with us about that?
Probably a bit early to talk about that, I'd say. It is something of interest, but there's no like firm like dates or production schedule for it. But yes, it is of interest, but it's not really gone beyond that yet. So
yeah. Still very much on the shelf for everybody at the moment. Like it's up there, we know it exists, but
yes, it's a very large project there. Yeah.
I assume this next question kind of builds off our previous one, actually.
Yes, indeed. So this is from Sarathon. What does Mod Markos think about allowing plugins for RuneScape 3?
Yeah, so we just talked about obviously the API, which should be tying into that. So we publicly disclosed that Old School's building like a official like plugin ecosystem. So that would be a indication of the type of direction we go. So plugins are definitely of interest. Love all the community development aspects of that. I think it's awesome. So I would like to encourage that as possible. But it's a very large technical infrastructure project.
So
the idea is we're building it for Old School, and then we would need to look at how we like translate that for RuneScape, basically, which would be some way off, I suspect. But it's definitely something we want to look at.
We're cooking, people. We're cooking.
Heaven's Vibe asks, at Mod Markos, how much structure and development space has been afforded to ad hoc changes and game jams under this new delivery approach for content?
Ooh, good question. So we are slightly restructuring how we're doing game jams, but yes, there is the intention to do game jam updates, obviously, as we typically do. One of the things we've been looking at a lot in terms of like how we construct the roadmap and like the week-to-week release cadences is making sure there's, where possible, we're able to get good releases each week. And things like game jam and kind of like more rapid ideation from the team kind of tie into that really well, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning as well, I think a passion project for you, currently working with QA to talk about how we can better prioritize our bugs. And the bugs we're highlighting, like at every level, I think there's that sort of level of how could we maybe make tweaks and improvements to better prioritize the community wants and needs. So I'm sure a lot of people will be really excited about that. Do you want to get Iron Dragon's question?
Yes, absolutely. So this is from Iron Dragon. What changed to make Jagex and RuneScape team completely swift, I'm guessing, switch Let me start that again. What changed to make Jagex and RuneScape team completely switch tactics from communication? We're all loving it, but I'm curious as to what we feel was the sparks that led us to this new strategy.
Well, these ideas all come from the team, really. So when I started working with the team a few months ago, Hooli already had loads of good ideas around what we could do, around like communicating with players and so on. So it was more around enacting the good ideas the team had rather than anything beyond that. I think like the team already had like good instincts around like how we should be talking stuff, and it was very much more around empowering people in the team to do that more directly and not feeling like they had to go through me or anything like that. It was like it was up to them to kind of make decisions around that and like be much more direct communication with the players, and also much more dialogue around how we're making updates and how they're going to work and so on. So yeah.
Spoken like a true leader.
Yeah, I just want to add as well the big credit as well to the team, because the team, I'm sure many of you have known over the years, there's a lot of JMods who spend a lot of their personal time even getting out and engaging, and they've kind of come with us on this and been an amazing help for what we're trying to do and bring to you. It's a big shout out to all the JMods as well on top of that, because just as a culture of developers, they are incredible as just wanting to be out there with players. It's awesome. Okay, Pfeiffer. I always have to check the pronunciation before I say something. Question with the big survey in mind. Are there any plans to give clans tools or new content to Clan Citadels or something along those lines? Are we thinking about clans at all?
Oh, right. So we have had a look at clans. I wouldn't say there's like a firm backlog of updates or anything yet, though. It is something we've explored, and obviously we've discussed it a bit as well. So it's something we're interested in, but we're trying to figure out like what kind of updates would give the best impact, because stuff that's clan related is often quite like complicated to build and maintain and so on. So we need to be quite selective around like what we choose to do that gives like a good impact for the players and things as well.
Yeah, and I will say we still have, if there's any clannies out there watching, we still have your list. I believe it was Mod Perky did it a few years ago, that we have all that stuff as well sitting there. So if we ever do get the opportunity or anything, we have those for you as well. We haven't lost any of that. Thank you to all the clannies who worked with us on that. It was amazing.
I was the producer on Clan Sisters when they first launched as well. So.
Oh, okay. Oh,
many years ago.
Yeah. Well. Amazing.
Brilliant.
Do you want to grab 5 extras?
So we've got...
This is in very small text.
Kuma Oz. Are there any plans...
Next one. Do the next one.
Sorry. Oh, wait. No,
yeah.
Where? Oh, that is very
yeah,
small.
that's what I'm like.
5 extra. What have you learned from producing... Oh, there we go. Thank you so much. What have you learned from producing old school RuneScape that you applied to RuneScape?
Yeah, so like we talked about this a little bit before. So mostly it's around like just the sound principles of like how we work with the community and how we're delivering value to the community, I'd say. So obviously I've worked extensively with the old school team over the last few years around like how we build the roadmaps and how we think about in terms of like what we're delivering when for the players and so on. So there's that, like we talked about earlier, there's that steady cadence. You don't go too long without a quest or too long without a PVM update, because the community enjoys that variety. It likes kind of like lots of different types of updates coming out in close succession and things. So we brought that over from old school, like that more regimented kind of like planning in terms of how you break things out by quarter and making sure it's quite structured. And then also like the community interaction. And again, I was talking earlier, it's kind of about empowering the team. Like the old school team are extremely proactive about working with the community, and the RuneScape team are also doing that now as well. And I think that we're obviously doing a bit before, but trying to encourage it as much as possible. And particularly, as I mentioned earlier as well, around when we're working on updates, making sure that we're like pretty transparent about what we're working on, getting feedback from the players early on. So we launched the content in the best possible shape, so it's as well aligned as possible with like player expectations as we can make it.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
I'm conscious we're running out of time. Got a couple more questions originally from us that I want to make sure we ask, because one of them I know especially, the community would kill me for not asking. So obviously our big kind of surprise reveal at the end of the show that you got to kind of give to players, it was a new area expansion. Now it's a very mysterious way to talk about it. Where are we with that project? Just so players know, what's the existence of that project? Where are we? Do you think we'll be involving players in that process?
Because they would kill us if we didn't ask this.
Right, yes. So yeah, I saw like a lot of feedback around this on like Reddit and stuff when I was reading last night. The probably the best way to describe it is it's pretty early days on the project. So when we got the survey results, obviously the area expansion was like one of the top responses you could get, as you'd expect. It's something that players have always really liked and is a particularly exciting kind of update. So yeah, it's very early days, I'd say. We're still working on some of the high-level design elements, but yes, we will be talking to players through the process.
Yeah, so plenty more to look forward to, players. Oh, hi, camera, I went the wrong way. Plenty more to look forward to, and it will be a conversation we continue. Conscious that we need to have plenty to get on with the show. Well, Markos, is there anything you'd like to say before we end, or do you feel like we got to everything you were hoping to get to?
I think we covered most stuff. I'm kind of trying to read all the chat, which is actually kind of impossible, I've realised.
I know, it's like this and like...
They move so quickly.
But no, it's just would say I've really enjoyed working on the game for the last few months. Loved working with the team. I've loved the response from the players, from the recent updates and stuff. So I'm really excited about what we've got lined up for like the next couple of years as well. So looking forward to doing more of these kind of live streams and talking about more exciting updates in the future.
Yeah, I think Markos, to speak for many players, will say we're also excited to have you. And thank you very much for joining us today and running through all that stuff. Stay tuned, folks. We're going to go for a brief intermission. I can't follow camera lights, I promise. Stay tuned, folks. So we're going to go for a brief intermission while we get our next JMod guest on to talk a little bit more about the skilling boss. In the meantime, we've got a little something special for you. A talented creator by IronAraxxor, which I hope many of you know, they create incredible stuff, has given us a beauty of a trailer for a video series they have coming up. So we wanted to give it a little spotlight today, share a little light on something awesome coming in the community. Enjoy it, and we'll see you back in a second.
so bad.
No, it's we are so bad. Oh.
God, we're such goofballs. Why do we do this stuff?
Excuse me, I asked for a stroop waffle.
I don't know what's going on with the stream. Hello, everybody. I think it's for them to decide if we're back anyway. But yeah, hi
Anyway,
everyone.
yes, welcome back. It's time for us to talk about skilling, the skilling boss. And we are joined by the delightful Mod Ramen and also the delightful Mod Shrike.
Hello.
Welcome both. Hi, guys.
Hello.
So we are here to talk about the second ever skilling boss, recently announced to the Gate of Elidness, and a little about its precursor quest, Ode of the Devourer.
Yeah, so first let's talk about the release of this content, because it's a little different now. Some of you who might have read the blog might already know this, but we have 2 release dates for this content. We have a quest on September 16th, if I'm remembering that correctly, and then the skilling boss itself on September 23rd. So what can you tell us about that? Because that's a little bit different for us, right?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go for it.
So this came from a plan to try and integrate it more with a wider storyline. It's something we've been kind of pushing as an angle for a while. So originally, it was meant to be one update. It was a quest, and then the skilling boss is part of the quest. And then as it, scoped out, we split them into 2 a week apart. So you have a full story quest that's part of the new desert storyline, which is all very exciting, that Mod Zura and Mod Luma are working on. And as part of that quest, you will advance the story and unlock the skilling boss and do a tutorial run through of the skilling boss, so that a week later, whenever the skilling boss proper comes out, you're all ready to go and you can just dive straight in and repeat it and get all the full rewards and all the XP and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool, especially the fact that you're going to be able to kind of prep. Oh, we've got some art.
Oh, yes, I love these, yeah.
So big shout out to the art team. We asked, can you just give us some in-development shots? So you're going to get some sneak peeks at this arena, which is really cool.
So good. Look at it. Look at her.
It's a beauty, honestly, everything. I mean, they're killing it. It's amazing.
So Mod Fox was our concept artist for this, and we've got some really wonderful concepts that I think we can show more of post-release. And then Mod Black, which is our environment artist. It's just phenomenal, really, isn't it?
There's things unseen in the art that we haven't put in here that are even more beautiful somehow. So, speaking of which, obviously the visuals I think are super unique and defining about this, but what would you say you're trying to have as the unique defining factor of this skilling boss in its design?
Cool. So RuneScape only has technically one skilling boss, Croesus, which we released with Elder God Wars. So we're still very infant in what we determine as a skilling boss within our game. Obviously, we can look at our sister game, Old School. You've got Temperos, you've got Wintertodd, so we can look at there and see how they differ. We had a whole blog post about what makes a skilling boss different to a mini game. Does it need that central boss NPC? Does it need that character? And the answer was sort of yes. But again, we're still infant, so we're trialing something new. We looked at Croesus. We looked at what Croesus did well. We looked at what learnings we could take from Croesus. So for this one, we're actually utilizing damage a little bit. Something that is quite cool about boss design in RuneScape is allowing the player to utilize their toolset in a way that they want to. And one of our primary things for damage is the player has so much. They have so many opportunities of healing and damage mitigation. So why not bring that into, a boss? But obviously, you're going to be doing skilling to bring it down or her down, the gate. Different. So we're sort of moving a little bit away from stat reduction and just having super restores be the one way of mitigating. And then also playing around with allowing the player to choose their level of intensity. So that's a special thing about skilling. You can either really sweat it out, or you can not lean back too much to the point where you're not really engaging, but you can choose a sort of slightly easier route, but it will take you a longer time to kill.
Cool. Nice. And actually, it was interesting. Some people are asking this. I know you covered it a little bit in RCE. I don't know if you wanted to divulge all of it now. You don't have to. People are asking what skills are going to be involved then.
Oh, gosh. Crafting, mining, divination,
Agility.
agility.
I was going to say, I remember agility.
Those are the 4.
Those are your main 4.
Also, it's a big mix-up from what we got with.
Did I say divination?
Yeah, you did say
did,
divination.
yeah, you did. Yeah. There you go, people. Yeah, there's some really cool inclusions actually I've seen with just stuff working in progress. And on that note, how are you finding development so far? You were saying you're in infancy at the moment with kind of skilling bosses. It's only our second true skilling boss in RuneScape. How is it going? How are you finding bringing that to life?
I think for both of us, it's been quite stretching. Like, it's been something completely different to what we normally work on. Like, I primarily do quests normally, so going on to a skilling boss, like, it's a combination of stuff that's really interesting and I wouldn't say new, because obviously I have worked on those kind of systems before, but it's very different to what I normally do. So it was quite fun from a design point of view. We did a lot of bringing the whole team in, getting our artists and everyone involved in like on-sites to prototype and to experiment and say, okay, what can we do with this? So I think we got some pictures of our rubber duck prototyping where we brought our duckies in to pretend they're players. That was great fun.
And then on the flip side of that, like, I've primarily done bosses, but like even for this, I felt a little bit out of my depth, because like with combat and traditional bosses where you are doing combat, it's all about the player's tool set and how they are utilizing them against the boss. Like, something about boss design is you design a boss to die convincingly, whereas skilling is a little bit like it's slower. There's only so much you can do. Like, take mining for example. There is only so much you can do chipping away at a rock, right? Whereas a player's toolset with all of the combat system is so vast. So it's about taking those pieces and figuring out how we can maintain the core identity of skilling, but then also pull those pieces to take down an epic boss monster. Difficult task.
By the way, everyone's
Lots
saying
to learn.
rocks confirmed.
Yes, there are rocks in the skilling boss, yeah.
New duck pet leaked. Yes. So obviously you've talked about the design, the challenges that you guys have faced, obviously. But in terms of the direction you intend to take for the rewards, are we considering a crit balloon style reward in there, or just skilling stuff? Like, what's our design direction?
I keep seeing people being like, is there going to be like a crit balloon style reward in there? People want to know.
We haven't got an armor set. We have skilling off hands for, do we want to say what the skilling off hands are for?
Go for it.
Oh God, my brain's gone blank. No, we have
rune crafting.
Rune crafting.
Well, that'll be useful for next year.
And this is really embarrassing. I've completely forgotten what the other skilling off hands.
This happens on stream all the time.
We have a couple of skilling
It's
off
like
hands.
stream brain freeze.
Sorry, yeah. We have an amulet.
Couple of amulets.
We have a ring.
And of course, you can't have a boss without a scripture.
Yeah, we've got the Elitness God book.
So we
scripture.
won't talk about rewards. We'll wait for.
As I say,
don't give everything away.
I like it.
They are super interesting.
Getting the dirt for the players. This is what we want, Yuey. These are the questions.
I've got you.
But no, that's great. Yeah, keep some in.
I'll put on Twitter what the other skilling off hands for, because I should know it, and I can't believe I forgot
At some
it.
point,
But
if you just hear a
tweet
random
it.
skill get shouted out, assume
It'll
that's
be
what
me.
it is.
Yeah, sorry.
Right? Whether it's in this segment or later, just
I'll come running back
that'll be
into
what
the
it
room, and you'll just listen. Then.
Too much info. Too much.
Should we go to some live questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a question from Yelpsy. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. What skills beside crafting and divination are used in the encounter? We just went over this, I believe. It was 4 of them.
Mining and agility.
Mining and agility. So that's the 4. So I'll go straight to the next one. Magic Man is asking, will skilling outfits be important for this skilling boss? Obviously, we've got 4 different skills, right? So do they need to carry all outfits for those skills?
They'll have a general impact. What the skilling outfits generally do to skilling is just slightly bump them, slightly advance, but most of the time it's that little bit of XP gain. They'll help slightly.
There we go.
You won't need them, though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they'd be essential. For the
Will you need
encounter.
your inventory pack empty? Or is that giving it away? No, not gonna answer that.
We can talk about that, because again, that's another identity of what skilling is. Skilling is about resource management. You're gaining resource. Like, we trialed stackable items, we trialed unstackable items, and in the end, a core identity of skilling for us is inventory management. So we've gone for that.
Yeah, it totally
There you
is.
go.
That's a really cool. It's so weird, actually. Like, we say it's a fundamental level things that, at least as a player, I don't necessarily realise
It's
that you have
quite
to really get to the
interesting.
root to, right? Even in a skilling boss.
What is skilling in RuneScape? Like, that's a fairly existential question about the game, and it's been quite interesting to really delve into that and try and define it. Because I think, especially as a player, you just kind of accept it. Oh yeah, I know what skilling is in RuneScape.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
you're like, how do we actually talk about this? So no, it's been good for that front.
Can I ask, this is something we haven't had live, but actually I feel like I should ask it because I did see quite a lot off the back of the RCE. Right now, obviously, still lots of development ahead of us. Is there kind of a thinking that this might be a viable skilling training method? Is that something you're not really focusing on for this project and kind of your thinking? Where are you kind of landing on it right now?
Do you mind if I take this?
Go for it.
So we did discuss it at the start. We did discuss, well, hey, should this be the best experience in the game? Or should it be the meta for something? Or should it really compete with something at this level? Whilst the XP you get isn't going to be token XP, it's going to be a little bit juicy, but it's not, this wasn't designed to be something that changes the way you skill at a certain band.
Right.
It's about do the encounter, utilize your skills and get your little drops at the end. Like you don't go into, I mean, some people might, but you don't go into a combat encounter and go, I'm doing this because I want the best combat XP. You were going into it because you want the juiciest drops at the end.
Yeah, I think the only exception to that is Hermod. I think Hermod leveled me in Necromancy far more than I realised he would, but yeah, I agree. Totally.
As soon as you get into that power struggle between like how quick should this be, how often should we be doing drops versus how much experience to get, like you're just crossing wires that don't need to be crossed. So.
Right. Also looks, people seem pretty happy to hear that as well, so that's great to hear as well. Got some more live questions coming in.
Yes, we've got one from 5 Extra. Elidness is associated with water and fertility. Is that reflected in the fight?
It's reflected in the aesthetics. There are other aspects reflected in the fight itself and in the mechanics that you can find out whenever you play. I think that's gonna be really closely tied into the quest.
Mainly the water part.
But yeah, there's the water, and then part of something I did for this boss is really develop Elidness a bit more as a character and develop, because for the lore people out there, we basically know nothing about her. She's a fairly major character in the Desert Pantheon, but we've never actually met her. We've never spoken about her. She has some minor parts in quests from way back, but getting to develop her a bit more, turn her into kind of a moon river goddess, like thematically that works really nicely. Her opposite number is Tumaken, who's the sun god of the desert, so it makes sense for them to kind of mirror each other. Yeah. Those sorts of elements are obviously mirrored in, is obviously reflected in the fight. Mod Blackwish did a fantastic job, and again, with the whole moonlight, and there's a lot of cool stuff like that in there, so yes, it's definitely reflected in. And you'll get a lore book developing Elidness a little bit more as well, which is always exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, it's part of the...
Do you love some lore? That sounded so sarcastic.
That sounded really sarcastic. Like, wow, okay.
I think it was from Azana because I definitely did not have a name attached to it. Or maybe, actually maybe it does. There we go. There's some weird stuff going on our script right now. Silent Sun has asked, is the boss soloable or a group boss like Croesus? And I'm going to add to that. What's it been primarily developed with in mind?
Good question.
Okay, it is solo and group. So at the moment, it was designed as solo. But as we play test, most of the time we go into group and play test it and develop as a group, and then we sort of jump backwards and go, right, how's that feel in the solo encounter? So that's when we've been playtesting as a group, always in the back of our mind, hey, it's solo. Yeah. So we're always honing that part. I can say the group size goes up to 10. There's no like crazy scaling that makes it completely unfair in a group encounter. Like traditionally, if you design something for solo and then also open it up to group does become that slightly bit easier. That's just the nature of things. So that the expectation is there, go with your buddies. There isn't any, what's it called, base world, open lobby like Croesus. It is just get together with your mates or go solo on your own. I'm sure there will be friends chats for people doing it.
For the rewards as well, we don't have a contribution system or anything. If you're involved in the fight, you get a fair roll on the rewards table.
But if you're bringing like Timmy along and he's leeching,
I think there's going to be a lot of people hype about that as well. So that's really good.
We looked at all the learnings from Croesus and we just didn't need that layer of complexity.
Yeah.
Like you want to encourage players to be doing what they want in the fight. You don't want players to be stalling just to get the max amount of points. So
yeah.
Classic Timmy.
Classic Timmy.
I mean, going along that, we've had another question from Grink GG. Will there be a hard mode version of the boss?
Not in the traditional sense. But again, like I touched upon earlier, there will be, once you sort of get level unlocks to do sort of, let's call them nodes. That seems to be the word of the month, nodes. It's very skilling. Once you get certain level unlocks, you can tackle those nodes to make the fight will be slightly harder, but it's part of the same encounter. So you can either opt to do the harder stuff, but obviously that will get you a quicker kill. It will be harder. Or you can just say, hey, look, I'm skilling, I'm chilling.
Actually, that is a point. Other than that, yeah, that is a point though. What's your kind of vision for the challenge of the boss? Because Croesus really is very difficult to fail. I think at least once people got the initial hang of it. Do you see this as something where it's about kind of mastering it and then you're just in a groove and kind of you've got your head around it? Do you think it's always going to push players? Do you think it's very dependent on skill? Like, where are you kind of landing on that at the moment in your thinking?
There are elements and mechanics where you kind of have to put the effort in to learn the mechanics. In that sense, I think it's more like a traditional boss than Croesus is. Croesus is you're learning a pattern, and then once you've got the pattern hammered down, it's optimizing. This one has more elements of the boss is going to do a mechanic, and you have to figure out what to do about that mechanic.
It's got elements of reactionary,
Interesting.
but like any boss does have that, and like, we call it flow state bosses. Like Raxxor is a really good flow state boss. It's hard to learn, but once you get into the groove of it, you're just like, cool, Raxxor kill, Raxxor kill, Raxxor kill, and you're just, maybe you're vibing to music, maybe you're listening to your mates on Discord, but you are in that flow state.
Right.
And this is one of the bosses where once you learn it and master it, you just get into that flow state and the rhythm of doing it.
Conscious we're running out of time for this section, so do you want to tackle that last question that came in?
Yes. So obviously, with the skilling boss that's coming in, the requirements obviously to enter this area is obviously going to be a big question a lot of players are going to have. So what are the one from Annex 7? What is the level and other requirements needed?
Don't worry if you can't think of the level specifically. I think in the middle of a stream, but
We'll talk about the other requirements. Ode of the Devourer requires...
Ode to the Devourer will require Requiem for a Dragon.
Yeah.
amazing
So it's quite deep into the story. So that does mean
It's-
the skilling boss is gated behind a large number of quests, but that's what we're trying to go for with this. We're testing the waters. So
Yeah. Shout out to the quest crew.
Yeah.
All your work. So this is make sure you're doing your quests.
Yeah. Ode to the Devourer is a direct follow-on from Requiem for a Dragon.
and will be important going forward as well, I hear, for the future quests. So you might want to make sure you can do it. Right. Thank you so much, both, for joining us. Is there anything, just before we go, that you would love to mention that we didn't get to cover today? Just to check.
so it's a weird question. No, all good. Looking forward to
I
it.
just realised that's a dangerous question to ask the Ramen. It's like, let me tell you about the State of Combat. You will be back to talk about the State of
I will
Combat
be.
in a panel later. But yeah, thank you both for joining us. Did you have anything? I thought you
No, all good.
Okay,
all
perfect.
Good. Yep.
If you remember it, shout off camera what the other
Yeah, I'm going to
offhand
go
is.
figure that out and I'll put it
Literally
on
just
Twitter.
shout it so they hear it. Thank you both so much for joining us. We'll have a little more to discuss on the quest Ode of the Devourer during the lore panel later, so look out for that, among many other things. But next up, let's talk some Group Ironman, shall we? See you in a sec. we have your answer. Hello.
Yes. So
Live from the live. I'm hearing. Getting
live
breaking
from Mod
news.
Strike. Live from Mod Strike. It's divination.
I was meant to do that with you, wasn't I?
Yes, you are.
Anyway, hi, welcome back to RuneScape Ahead Expanded. We are here to talk about Group Ironman, which I know a lot of you are excited about.
Yes, we are. And you all know what that means. It's time to say hello to the iconic Timbo.
Hello.
I should do that to all JMods, but I'm doing it to you right now. It's lovely to have you here for a hugely exciting release, because obviously last we saw you for, spoiler alert on the shirt, Necromancy, I think, was the last time you joined us on the stream.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So obviously this is a huge one for a lot of people in the community. I remember the moment we announced that in May, where people were like, what, you're actually going to do this? You recently went into some first detail on Group Ironman in a right-click examine. Before we get to that though, let's start from the top. Let's assume no one's read it. I'm sure many of you have. Our Group Ironman, who are we making Group Ironman for? Are we making this to be like the ultra expression for a group of competitiveness, of challenge? Is it for friends who just want a good reason to re-experience RuneScape all over again and fall in love with it all over again? How would you describe like our target RuneScape player for something like Group Ironman?
We're aiming, I mean, it's a cliche, but we're trying to aim at everyone at one go. I mean, so for Group Ironman is you form a group with 2 to 5 people, and you follow the Ironman rules, except you can trade with each other. You have group storage and that sort of thing. And then, but what we're doing is we're adding some extra things to it. So we have regular Group Ironman, which is going to be for more casual people. So regular Irons can become Group Ironman if they wanted to. There's freedom to move between groups. You can group with other people and stuff like that. So that's like for your casual audience. You can rediscover RuneScape, right? Grab a couple of friends, make a group, and then just get involved, get with the new journey achievements and all this other cool cosmetic stuff that we're adding to the game. And then if you want that competitive mode, if you want that niche, that sort of like, I really want to be the best Group Ironman there ever was, there's competitive mode, which is really, really sort of strict rule set. You cannot do anything people outside of your group, which is a new thing for us for Ironman, because normal Ironman can still group with other Ironmen and do bosses and stuff like that. This is very restricted. This is like me and my group against the entire world doing this sort of thing. So like that's who we're sort of aiming it for. There's the competitive element for those who want to get on the high skills. They want to do something like purely just their group. And there's for everyone else, there's the regular Group Ironman who still have the cool cosmetics and stuff, but they've got their mates and they can leave and join them freely and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, really.
I'm going to keep blabbering, sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that's what the people want.
It's really exciting.
So if we can stop for a second. So we've started at the end. So we're going to go back. So I knew this was going to come up. So we've got a little sneak peek for you here. We've snuck this in. Thank you, art team. You're the best. We love you.
The island.
Do you want to explain what we're seeing?
Yeah, this is the Iron Enclave, which is what we've named it, which is our Group Ironman Island. So this is where when you come off the tutorial, when you come through the new player experience, you'll land on the Iron Enclave, and this will be where you make the Group Ironman.
Easter egg, look at that. If you know RuneScape, you know what that looks like. You know what that looks like, that portal right there.
Look at that sneaky little ball there. But yeah, so this is where you'll form your group, right? This is the Group Ironman group.
And this is it in development. We have some shots of it as it was kind of coming together. Do you want to talk about the shape?
I mean, I'll let the players work out what it looks like. But yeah, the island is a very sneaky shape if you look at it from a bird's eye view. It's even a bit more obvious.
Definitely development stage. Definitely development.
But like, I mean, you get to see the development stages of what the island is like. So we're like, what does the island need? Well, it needs a dude to make the Group Ironman, and it also needs. We would like a statue to show off some achievements and stuff like that. So like, much like Ironman did with their plaque in Burthorpe, we're going to have world firsts and all these other cool achievements that you can stamp your name onto the Group Ironman statue and sort of like be immortalized inside the game for you and your group. And you can see the statue there with that little plaque on it.
Oh, so pretty as well. Big shout out to the art team for sharing that for us. And also, I think in a very rare thing, artists love to show their complete work and to show it in progress. I love seeing that stuff. It's not always the most comfortable thing for an artist. You are amazing. Thank you, art team. I wish I got the mods specifically who put those in the folder, but it all came together very quickly. So thank you.
Yeah,
thank amazing.
you so much. As we can see from the comments as well, from all of you in the chat, you are all loving this as well. So thank you. Obviously, we've talked about the development side of Group Ironman. You've gone through that, and obviously we've gone into some detail of it. But there was parts of it that was about the parity plus. So what do we mean by this?
Yeah, so I coined this phrase pretty early on in design, because I felt like if we're going to do Group Ironman and RuneScape, we should do what Old School did, but maybe a little bit better, a little bit more different, more suited for our game, right? So the parity plus means we are going to have what Old School have. It's grouped from 2 to 5. The group management system is very similar. We have the island, we have the group storage, and we have all this other sort of the things like founder status, which is called prestige in Old School. We're renaming that to founder status. So that is if you are a part of the group since its inception, or like the group has the original members, you'll be known as a founding member or a founded group, that sort of thing. So that's the parity part of that thing. And the plus is the RuneScapiness, right?
Yeah.
What does our game bring to Group Ironman? And that is the things like group storage being extended to include some untradeable items like augmented items and armor. The journey tier achievement system, which I'm really super excited for, which we were calling qualifications for Group Ironman. I designed archaeology group qualifications, and we want to try and bring that element of like, can you qualificationize the entire game? Is that even a word? Did I make a new word up? You know what I mean? Like, so like, because like if you make a Group Ironman, you're with your mates, just like, what do I do?
Right.
Like the whole game is there in front of you, and it's not like there's nothing to do. It's just like there's this analysis paralysis of like, what do I do first? Like who wants to do what first? So the journey tier achievements are like, go do some quests, go do some task sets, go kill some bosses. Like it gives you the whole group these sort of like aims to go for step by step, incrementally getting more and more difficult, and then rewarding you with really cool things like more group storage space, the cosmetic armor, all this other like awesome like titles and things like that. It's really, really exciting sort of stuff. And that's the plus part of the parity plus.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and actually,
so exciting.
It is, yeah. And I think I'd be remiss, some of the conversation we saw off the RC, which we'll talk about in a little bit around other feedback. Obviously, Hardcore Group Ironman, there's an audience out there that's particularly interested in that as well. Where are we currently sitting on that? Is that something we're, obviously talking about parity plus, that's one of the things that we're not being parity on at release. Is that something we're thinking about ever not doing? Are we ever not going to do that? Is that something we're thinking about doing later? Where do we currently sit on Hardcore Group Ironman?
So Hardcore Group Ironman is not coming with, well, probably not coming with this release, I should say. But I mean, it's something we do want to do. It's something we can't do right now for various different reasons internally. But like, so we can't get it for release. Well, we probably can't get it for release. But like, it's something we want to do. Hardcore is very exciting. Like you and your mates, like someone just dies and you're like, damn it! Like, why did you die? You know, Hooli and like all that sort of stuff. So yeah, something we definitely want.
Why would it be me dying? Excuse me.
You never know. But yeah, we definitely do want to add it in. Probably not for release.
And it's funny actually because we were talking about this earlier. Obviously, it's a piece of feedback we've been looking at, and as you said, it is something we're acknowledging and definitely talking about. But you said some really interesting things about competitive and how you feel that kind of brings some new things. Do you want to talk a little about competitive in a bit more detail?
Yeah, so Old School have unranked and unranked, and so we're going with regular and competitive. And I think competitive is really exciting for me, for YouTubers and Twitch streamers and all that sort of stuff as well. But like just a group of friends who want to have this really strict rule set. So like the number one rule that I put in the right click examine, which is the guiding principle of it, is like you cannot do anything with anyone outside of your group. You can't get boosted, you can't do mini games, you can't do bosses, you can't do anything else with other people. One of the rules is you have to do 100% of the damage to get drops, that sort of thing. I know there's going to be trolling associated with that for competitive Group Ironman, but we're alleviating that by allowing boss incident to be free for competitive Group Ironman. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. It's even stricter than normal Ironman. Like normal Ironman can group with each other and do bosses with each other, and this is like, no, you and your group, that's it. You want to go do raids or AOD? Yeah, you got to do it 5-man power. You cannot do it with any other people.
Of course.
So like this sort of like hardcore, like strict rule set of the competitive is really exciting for me, and it's really going to show who is like really cohesive in their group with their friends.
Absolutely, and obviously with the amount of people who are looking forward to this massively in terms of how the community has been reacting. What's been I suppose, the response for Group Ironman? How have you guys all been with it? It's been pretty exciting.
we released a right-click exam. Was it last Thursday, I believe? So if you haven't read that, read it. We want your feedback. But anyway.
Yes, please.
It's been awesome. Like the whole team is just like dropping links and like posting screenshots of like Discord chats and Twitch comments and Reddit threads and all that sort of stuff. Like
We do see them.
yeah, we do read them and we do see them and we post them and it's like, oh my god, someone's excited about this. And then it's like, also it's like, oh, player RuneKiller115 said, oh, what about this element? And we're like, oh yeah. Like, oh yeah, we haven't done that bit. Like we need to think about this thing. So like the aura issue was something we were talking about literally today. We could talk. Shall I talk about it now? Because like
yeah, do it. Go ahead.
yeah, why not? Because like
we're talking about player feedback, so yeah, it's good.
Play feedback.
Yeah, well, there's more play feedback. So like auras are going to be a problem for competitive group Ironman to start, right? Because you're not going to have loyalty points to get all your auras and stuff, and some people might have loyalty points backed up. And to try and ensure a level playing field for auras, we're going to enable all auras for all competitive group Ironman and group Ironman players. So you have access to all of them from the beginning. You won't have them unlocked, which is very important to notice. So you'll be able to use auras, but you won't have them unlocked. So if you de-iron or you downgrade from a group Ironman, you still have to go unlock them. But the exciting thing is that there's going to be a level playing field. It doesn't matter if you've got loads of loyalty points or you buy Premier Club and things like that. It's a level playing field. You get access to all the auras. Go wild, like just enjoy yourself. And that was one of the problems that we sort of saw from from player feedback and that sort of thing. So we were like, how do we solve this? Do we ban all auras? Do we give everyone free auras?
Yeah.
And so that's the decision we literally came up with like what, 3 hours ago?
Yeah, I was
as hot off the press.
Because the funniest thing is Mod RS Guy, as he currently is, hi RS Guy, was even like, what pod? Because he doesn't know, because we were literally talking about it 3 hours ago.
This is news to a lot of the dev teams. So.
Timbo, this is how Timbo confirms design decisions. This is how it rolls.
Well, I mean, the right-click blog was literally our entire design.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, there's a lot of things about the roadmap and stuff, but like, we want to be super transparent with you. Or like, we want, like, I just want to shove my designs out to people and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And then we've had a lot of good feedback about it.
We're frantically behind Timbo, just be like, slow down, slow down.
And then poor Azana's like, I need to write more words, don't do this. Actually, so there was some other feedback we were talking about. So something around milestone capes is another change we've made. So for context, RuneScape Ahead was filmed about 2 weeks ago-ish. Obviously, it takes a long time to edit and pull these things together. The video and creative team are unbelievable. The timeline they did this thing on has been amazing after RuneFest got moved. But we filmed about 2 weeks ago. So some information has changed from what we had in the video yesterday, right?
Yeah, so we put out the concept art for what milestone capes would look like. So the max cape, the quest cape, comp cape, I think, I can't remember. So like what they would look like, and these were going to be like, so if your entire group and the max cape, you would have the group max cape, and that would be a really cool new feature. We put out to players, they were like, yeah, we don't actually like these. we don't think that's a very good idea. And we were like, oh, okay. So that's cut now. We are going to replace it with something else. Players will be giving the like, we don't like this armor, what about blah? What about this? What about X? And we're like, okay, cool. So we're going to replace it with something else. So there's still going to be a very cool group feeling of everyone getting a comp cape, everyone getting a quest cape, everyone getting a max cape, but it's not going to be this milestone cape that we were initially designed and planned on. It's going to be something else. I don't see what it will be, but I mean, you're welcome to give feedback. People have been giving loads of feedback about this, about what's going to be in the future. But yeah, like that right-click exam is a living design document. We don't want to design something and be like just rush it through because, like, even though I'm the designer, I'm not always right. That's the point. It's the player's king in terms of what goes out and put into the game. So thank you for your feedback, and we will make changes should they be necessary.
And for those of you who say you love group capes, this is the interesting thing. One, make sure you see these right-click exams, make your voice heard, because if you're out there and you did want them, it's also important for us to know what you want to see. But also two, hopefully, I would hope, if we continue as we've been starting, there'll be an ongoing conversation. So if we get to post where actually people's minds change, or maybe we come up with an idea that we think could fill that gap, like, that's a conversation we can keep continuing. So we see you too. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just the people we heard from already, we see you
It's
too.
like, I think people like the idea of group capes, but the way they looked weird. So like, that's why we're going to replace the idea of a group cape with a new thing.
Yeah.
Because we still want
Just
to,
don't know what that is yet.
yeah, we still want to celebrate everyone in the group getting a certain thing. So yeah, that's a certain milestone.
Amazing.
Do you want to throw in some community questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's go into some live questions.
Yeah.
We've got one which I believe we've gone over already because it's something that has gone in.
Let's just ask it.
A question from 5 Extra. Does Group Ironman design include removing Ironman restrictions from mini-games so you can do them with your friends?
Yes, on certain ones.
Oh.
We want to put a list out of in a future Right Click Examine or in a blog post or something. We want to put a full list of all mini games that are allowed in Group Ironman that aren't allowed in Group Ironman. Like we're literally talking about again today when we were talking about auras. We're probably going to allow the Tsar Fight Pits and Castle Wars because you don't earn PvP as an Ironman. So and the rewards from them are not that thing. But as a competitive Group Ironman, you would have to only go in with your group in those things. So 2v2 Castle Wars or 3v2 Castle Wars, I suppose. But so that's the other restrictions on that sort of thing. But yeah, we've gone. I literally went through the entire list of all D&Ds and all mini games to say yes or no. We want to get that in front of you guys, and then sort of you can say like, hey, I want to do stealing creation with my friends, or even though it like for competitive that might not be allowed for certain things because we don't want advantages and disadvantages and like people gaming mini games, things like that.
No, gotcha. Let's fire through these. We are running out of time, so I want to make sure we get to a bunch of community questions. After you.
Flash through. So we are
Speaking of flash.
flash through. One from All Day, Wilderness Flash Events. No go for Group Ironman?
Yes, there will not be allowed for competitive Group Ironman.
Cool, go.
Rubik's asked, how will auras, temporary events, etc. work with Group Ironman? So I think really the new question there is temporary events.
They will work the same way as Ironman for the most part. Competitive may have restrictions on certain events.
We've got one from Kidoira. I think it's Kidoira. With Group Ironman coming out soon, are Iron given another chance to de-iron by joining a non-competitive group and leaving that to become a main?
Yes, regular Ironman can de-iron become a Group Ironman. If you do that, the only path is to become a main. If you downgrade being a Group Ironman, you become a main. So yeah.
Right. There we go. And then we've got one from Leo OSRS. Will overloads or other untradeable potions be stored in group storage?
Yes. I can confirm overloads will be in group storage.
There's a lot of untradables that will be tradable in group storage, is that correct? Or between the group?
There will be an amount of untradeable items.
Oh, that's dropped in the question.
But overloads is one of those. So all the variants of overload all the way up to, what's this, Elder? No, what's the Elder Salves?
Yeah, it is Elder overload.
Yeah. Will be allowed in group storage.
There is a question. Sorry, I saw someone said, "Oh, I might not play Group Ironman if they're limiting all this content." Just to be clear, when we're talking about those limitations, that's competitive Group Ironman, not
for most of them.
Most of them
competitive. Yeah. There will be a general block for Ironman for normal Ironman restrictions. So anything that's blocked in Ironman will currently be blocked in Group Ironman, except for some few exceptions.
Just for the sake of time, is there anything we didn't cover today that you would love to tell the players that we didn't tell them in Right Click Examine, or should they just go to Right Click Examine, get read up, and give us feedback?
I don't know. I think it's
the whole Group Ironman team are shaking their boots that you've got another confirmation that no one knows.
No, I think it's fine. I mean, like one of the questions was like, why is there high scores for non-competitive? We think because why not? It's basically the simple thing for that. We are looking into ways that you'll be able to see founders groups on that. So a founders group will be a group that started as a fresh. So you can tell who has de-ironed and joined a Group Ironman and who hasn't de-ironed and joined a Group Ironman. So if you want to play non-competitive and be in the high scores, there'll be a way to identify that you are a proper group. I don't want to say that, but you know what I mean? Like if you're a group of fresh people who want to do non-competitive, you can do that and you will be recognized on the high scores.
Cool. Just before we move on, I just want to say there was a few people out there who were not sure of what the release date for this was. Now, we haven't given a firm release date.
Don't ask me.
Oh, okay, fine. I'll cover it. It's later October to early November is the current release window. So that's the target area we're looking to launch. We're not quite in a position to confirm. There's a lot of technical work that goes into Group Ironman, which is why we've not been able to commit to a date like we have with things like Skilling Boss. But just so you know, it'll be around then. So at the very least, you'll probably see it at the earliest after Halloween, which we've dated for the 14th of October. So we'll confirm the release date as soon as we can. We know you want one. and you want to book time off work.
Yes, exactly. But yes, unfortunately, that is our time with you, Timbo. Thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. I feel like I've said nothing, but also a lot.
No, absolutely. I mean, we can't wait to see, obviously, what the community bring up in Group Ironman. Obviously, with a few months left to go until the release. We can't wait. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And obviously, you, yes, you, wherever you are watching at the moment, me. Yuey, not Yuey, it's me.
That joke's never going to go.
It's never going to go. Stick around after the break. It's time for the panels. And we're kicking off with a good one. It's Lore.
Yep.
hi. Welcome back to the show for our first panel of the day. It is lore. So during this segment, we are going to chat about some of the lore-related reveals in RuneScape Ahead, as well as some of the general discussion about the stories in RuneScape. So don't forget, this is also your chance to ask your questions. We've got a few of our own to ask, but we'd love to bring your voice into this as well, where we can. So drop yours in the chat as we go, and the lovely Modazana is going to be helping us and feeding them to us right here in the studio. So joining me to chat lore are the wonderful mods of RuneScape. We've got Mod Stew.
Hello.
Woo. We have Mod Zura.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. And we've got Mod Jack.
Hi.
So let's talk about RuneScape Ahead announcement first. So lore-wise, things are getting a bit wild, right? A bit crazy. We're going to go back to the desert storyline. Hello. So how did this come about? Who would like to take this one?
This is a long story with a. Let's have a think. So when we were around the time of planning out what is now Ode to the Devourer, we had a story plan in mind. And as we sat down, so you'll notice on the previous version of the roadmap, there was a little picture of Bilrak there, because when they were making the interesting problem with these roadmaps now we're looking further into the future. The way that we make content, we don't necessarily know exactly what it is until development starts, which is about 3 months before it comes out. Now we're doing roadmaps 9 months into the future. That means we're speculating now a lot of the time, and we're not. So they say, "Can you tell me what the name of the quest is? Can you give me some key art for the quest?" And I say, "No, I can't, because a developer will be working on that quest at some point, and it's very much up to them what the quest is about and what the quest is called. So no, I can't tell you that. But it'll definitely have Bilrak in it, which turned out to be very incorrect.
Right, of course.
We have a storyline planned out at that point, but we got the survey results. We were looking at that. It wasn't sort of the survey says this, so we have to do it. It's the survey says this, so we should take what our players say seriously. If we were locked into a story with a strongly committed, very specific set of updates and quests planned, that it would be bad to change.
Right.
We wouldn't change just because the survey led us in a particular direction. But where we have our options open, obviously we should always lean in the direction of what player data is telling us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was a strong reaction in that survey for finish old storylines, and obviously a lot. And every time we have a storyline discussion, can we sneak desert in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we get desert done? So I was looking at the roadmap, and we had it planned out. We had a specific storyline schedule, and I was talking about the feasibility of it with other devs. Is this the right thing to be doing? What are our story plans here? And I called up Mod Rowley and I said, if I give you 3 quests and a boss, can we finish the desert storyline? And he went, yeah.
Brilliant.
Then I called up Zero, who was supposed to be working on the next quest, and said, should we do the desert storyline? And he went, I thought you were going to say that. Didn't you? Is that what you said?
I could tell as soon as you told me what you were going to say. I knew it.
So how's that been? How's that been for you guys in terms of the skilling boss? Because that was definitely a question that we did have. We'd talk about a little about the skilling boss associated with quest of Ode of the Devourer. How did that fit into everything, and will that be required at all for future quests?
Yeah, so we went into Ode. Because it's tied to the Sanctum of Rebirth, it was going to be tied to a mascot. It was going to be tied to the desert, the underworld, necromancy, all of those things.
Right.
And then when the skilling boss team started on the Gate of Elidness, as actually I was part of the suggesting that, because we know so little about Elidness. We know more about all of the other men of her pantheon, but it's really not much lore about her. So to me, it was a brilliant opportunity in the quest to explore Elidness, learn more about her, reveal some new lore about her. But it wouldn't just be like in the background, deep lore, because obviously Amaska, Ictharin, she's their mum.
Right.
Their relationship with her is very central to the plot, the core of the desert storyline. So delving into that just a little bit in Ode of the Devourer was very exciting for me. In terms of whether it will be required going forwards, yes, Ode of the Devourer will require Requiem for a Dragon and Soul Searching, and the desert storyline going forward will require Fight Club and Ode of the Devourer.
Yes, and I believe this is something that you, Mod2, went into in the video of RuneScape Ahead. I remember you mentioning this, that you had to make sure that some of the quests were done in order to get this finished.
It's going to require a Fight Club for the first desert quest. So yeah, you want to complete the desert quest line up to that, and then also Ode of the Devourer. So it's sort of dovetailing those two series together. Is that right?
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So in terms of the lore for RuneScape that's involving with our recent developments, obviously, how are we approaching the players who might not remember all of the details of the desert storyline? Is there some of the quests? Because obviously these quests go back a long time ago, right? So for players who have been not in the desert quest storyline for a long time, like how are we going back to them? How are we reawakening those quests?
Yeah, this was definitely a discussion we've had. So Ode of the Devourer, for example, because it doesn't require Fight Club Desert Storyline, it does do quest checks to see if you've completed certain quests and changes dialogue accordingly. And obviously, Desert Onwards will require Fight Club. But as we've discussed, just because you've done a quest doesn't mean you remember everything that's happened. You might have forgotten everything. So in Ode, even if you do have done those quests, you always get the option to ask for additional context, learn more about the characters. It's really supposed to serve as a refresher as well as an introduction. So if you go in and you just don't remember stuff, hopefully it'll all be covered. You'll be reintroduced to these characters and come out knowing more about them and being excited about their story going forwards and really wanting to see it reach its conclusion.
That's great.
I guess there's an interesting nuance there that at the time you started development on Ode of the Devourer, sorry, I keep doing that. It wasn't. We hadn't at that point pivoted over to thinking of it as the desert storyline. It was a sanctum quest that was tied in with the fort that included desert content. So you wrote it with that in mind, that it didn't require. Potentially, if we went back and did it again with the pivot in mind, we might have required desert content. But even so, I think the way you've gone about doing it makes a lot of sense. Of, as you said, just because someone's played those quests 15 years ago doesn't necessarily mean they remember everything that happened in them.
Yeah, I think I'd have approached it in a similar way, and I think we'll approach the desert storyline in a similar way too. Not assume that players know things just because they completed one quest 10 years ago.
It turned out quite fortuitous that Sanctum of Rebirth had a desert theme to it to start us moving in that direction, creating that interest.
It felt like it. I think in isolation, I probably wouldn't choose to sort of pivot a storyline like that. But because it had kind of already happened, it felt like it put that option on the table for us, and then we say, yeah, actually, this works really well.
And we've got some plot points set up for Bill Rack in the future, but it's not like we needed to immediately deliver on that one, so it seemed a good time to do the switch.
Yeah, Ode of the Devourer isn't a hard pivot. It will carry on the previous storyline somewhat while shifting into the new one.
And obviously, with the player survey, obviously that we've just released, we had some amazing responses from everyone on this. So how much of that has that influenced the new change into the storyline in terms of like the desert quest? Has player feedback really influenced this to come back alive? Like how much of the player survey has that influenced in our decisions in making this?
Yeah, very much so in terms of that, and that key result saying, you know, we want you to go back and finish old storylines. It's an interesting one to look at because actually, what is it? It's desert, gnomes, penguins, and elemental workshop. I think now, and gnomes is sort of a tentative one. Penguins, I'm not sure counts as it is sort of unfinished, but it also wasn't sort of promising a long-running additional storyline.
It's unfinished in the same sense that like James Bond is unfinished. You
can just keep doing more of it. I don't think of penguins as unfinished exactly, and gnomes itself, the big elephant in the room with gnomes is Arpasandra. We already have Menaphos, so an elemental workshop is very much like a vessel for the right developer. Like you can't just pick anybody. I mean, go make another elemental workshop. It has to be a developer who just wants to make horrible puzzles.
Yeah, of course.
If a developer doesn't want to do it, I can't really force them to. So yeah, of the options that we have, I think, you know, desert's the obvious one that's screaming out for attention.
I mean, on a personal note, what's been your favorite quests? And if there were any quests that you would change, would there be any?
Oh, that's a big question. What would we change?
Right.
Let's start with your favorite quests.
The usual answer I give is, oh, mine's gone blank.
One pissing note?
Yes, one pissing note.
There we go, one pissing note.
You knew what I was going to say. I'm quite fond of Gower Quest now, actually. I love Gower Quest just because it's got so much absolute nonsense in it.
Oh, yeah.
Got a Guard of War joke in it.
The bank standing skill definitely has legs.
Bank standing skill, yeah, absolutely.
Is that the quest you would love to return back to? Would you say?
Probably not. You probably shouldn't be allowed to do any more of that, but yeah.
How do you feel about a Broken Home sequel? Something that's
That's Twilight of the Gods. Oh, sorry, not yeah, 12 gods. Yeah.
Okay, so like the lore points have been delivered then.
I suppose so. Yeah,
but
but
I mean, like, I'm saying in that sort of procedurally generated mention.
I don't know. It's very. I'm very proud of what we did with Broken Home, but it's very Marmite. Some people absolutely adore it. It's their favorite quest.
I love it.
Some people really hate it. It's not like an obvious promising candidate that we should definitely make more of that because it's so contentious.
Yeah.
So it's always a bit tricky.
It was a huge quest. I remember it was like, I did it right at the beginning when I first started. I think I was only about...
Oh, that's a baptism of fire.
Yeah, it was. I think I was only like level 500 in total. I had like nothing. It was nothing. And I went in just going like, oh, I'll just go in here. Let's see what this quest is about. And then just got absolutely obliterated. Like
die again and
constantly
again.
And again. I had no idea what I was doing. Okay, so what are some of the challenges that we're expecting? Some of the challenges we face when expanding the lore, and how do we address them? Is there any challenges that we do face in terms of the lore? So RuneScape is obviously massive. We've got so much within the lore itself. There are obviously so many people who are writing, as we've seen. We've got so many amazing, incredible devs who are working on these lores and these quests. But in terms of the challenges that we tend to face, what have been the biggest challenges that we've tend to find with writing new lore?
Pride Slayer in the chat is saying it's him. I think that's probably. I think it's probably. There's a big challenge that's very pertinent to Desert. We have the same challenges that any long-running multi-author sort of serial series has. Like voices change, authors change, ideas change, the culture changes. I mean, you think about the world now. Early RuneScape's content was sort of, what's the nice way to put it? But like it was written a little like the decade before at the time. It felt like kind of 90s content as it was being written. We're 20 years on from that now. The world's just a completely different place.
Absolutely.
We've changed, the game has changed, the audience has changed. And so we're picking up a story, that started 20 years ago and continuing with it. We have our own ideas. We need to, it's not our place to throw out what was there and change it for what we want to do.
Sure.
But at the same time, we have to be passionate and excited about what we're doing. We can't just, we're not sort of, like writers for hire who just get brought in to just write whatever someone else tells us to. We want to, you have to see our passion coming through in our work.
We've inherited a legacy, and we need
to
respect the content that this here and maintain, stay true to the maintaining the characterization of the how characters have been written previously, and maintaining the same theme. The original developers aren't here anymore usually, but trying to predict what they were aiming for and try to maintain that sort of trajectory.
In the case of Desert, so we do have Mod Rowley. He won't be, I believe, actively working on the quests. No. He is sort of leading the supervision of the story for it, in terms of making sure that the story direction, he's the first port of call. How were you intending to end this story? Tell us all about your story plans, the character plans, make sure we've got that continuity. I mean, so he didn't write all of the original Desert content, but he very much exerted strong creative ownership over it.
Right. Of course,
so it's kind of his thing now, and so making sure that I think he's quite enjoying getting to say, this is the story you're going to tell, without necessarily having to do all the work himself. It's quite fun.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's been very heavily involved. We're trying to make sure that it's stay true to what's been established for and the direction we're aiming in.
I mean, as the writer coming in, there is that challenge because you want to fulfill his legacy and kind of make his vision come true. You also kind of want to have your own spin on it and put some of yourself into it, and finding that right balance of what he originally intended it to be and making that come to pass while still being true to myself and what I envision for it as well.
Yeah. I mean, also the storyline of the game has moved on considerably since then. Desert was kind of 5th age pre-gods when Richie set up those plot points. How has that story changed within the 6th age in a world where the gods have been here and come back? Dealing with Desert Pantheon, it's a very different flavour. So that's an interesting.
That's probably worth commenting on. Actually, that one of the big open questions we'd always had with returning to the Desert storyline was it going to be 5th age or 6th age?
Right.
And the events of Twilight of the Gods sort of intentionally blurred the difference between the two. The 6th age is not so different from the 5th age now. The gods aren't here regardless. There is a big time gap, but things move slowly in the desert regardless. And so I think, although that question is still meaningful, the idea of a desert finale while Saradomin is running around is very different to a desert finale when Saradomin isn't running around.
Right.
And as long as the gods aren't running around, the difference in the 5th age and the 6th age isn't so great anymore. And then now that we are sort of folding it in alongside another storyline, I think the question kind of answered itself.
Right. I'm quite conscious of how many questions we are currently getting in from the chat. So I'm going to dive into some questions from the community. We've got the first one from Fast and Wacky. If Ode of the Devourer will require...
Requiem for a Dragon.
Requiem for a Dragon, thank you. Does that mean the Desert Finale will require essentially the entirety of the first Necromancer storyline and the Fort Frinthi storyline as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Short answer, yes.
We have to get the right balance of requirements, and something like one of the controversies with Menethos was the no requirements. And looking back on that, that probably isn't the right way to continue a storyline that people are looking forward to, and finding that right balance of, you know, Necromancy had no requirements to get started on it, Fort Frinthi had no requirements to get started on it. But now that we're coming in, you know, it's the time to bring in those requirements. That's right. That's the hard work is what RuneScape is made of, and it makes sense in that context.
Yeah, definitely. Another question from them is, if the plan is to return to wrap up the Desert storyline, does that mean that the plan is for Jagex to continue on to wrap up other old storylines afterwards?
It would depend on the opportunity and the circumstance, I think. I mean, I sort of was talking earlier about Penguins is a complicated one because that's a very unique tone, isn't necessarily demanding additional content, and similar, not quite the same degree as Elemental Workshop, but similar to Elemental Workshop. You don't want just anybody writing a Penguin quest, you know. Right. It has a very specific vision and tone to it, and just shoving penguins into things for the sake of it isn't the right thing to do. Right. And then gnomes is an Arpasandra question, essentially. If we need a piece of content like Arpasandra, in the same sense that we needed Menethos and we needed Prifddinas, then that would be the time to do that, not just go, well, it's on a list, we need to tick it off for the sake of it.
Right, of course. We have one from 5 Extra. Will tying Underworld to the Desert storyline change the Desert storyline?
No.
Short answer, no.
Well, Ixalan and Namaska are gods of the underworld, or Namaska in Namaska's case was, so there was a very natural tie there. Right. So what we actually found was, it was Sanctum of Rebirth felt like a very natural fit. Gate of Elidness as the skilling boss in the Sanctum of Rebirth felt like a very natural fit, and then Gate of Elidness into a quest very closely tied to Elidness and Ixalan was a very natural fit. So it's all actually tied together quite smoothly, I think.
Oh, nice.
Lore changes and evolves as it goes. The Necromancy Underworld lore obviously was written with the existing game in mind, but also expands into areas of the game that weren't necessarily covered before. But that's not, I mean, it's strictly speaking, it's changing, but that's just how all lore expands and evolves over time, just to incorporate new ideas and expand it. So it's not necessarily exactly what was envisaged at the time. No. It's bigger and more detailed than that.
But it didn't feel forced. It felt like there was a very natural connection there to draw off of.
That was part of it when we're thinking about the opportunity, is if it had been very awkward to pivot into Desert, we wouldn't have done it because it felt very clunky.
Right.
So it was the fact that the opportunity made sense that,
nice.
Big reason for doing it.
So we got one from Monkey Socks. Will we ever see any of the gods again? I would like to know what happened to Zaros, for example, in Erebus. I hope I pronounced that right.
It's not that we shouldn't do it or that we should do it immediately. I would think of it as there are big potential plot points there waiting to be used when the time is right. Similar to the other answers in that sense of, we have plans, we have, obviously things that we've set up. We actually have a reasonably detailed idea of where Zaros is and what's going on. Right. All of that is always subject to change, because it's not like there's a secret law book which can never be changed. Of course. Sort of, if we need to or want to bring this out, we can, but then we've got those pieces and we can use them when we want to. There's a reason that we wrote out the gods, and so in that sense, as and when we bring back in those plot points, we would need to make sure that they work for the world and the power level of the world.
Of course.
But yeah, it's not, we're definitely going to do it, but it's definitely not, well, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, all three of you have done incredible stuff so far. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us while we are on live stream to discuss anything that you're potentially working on at the moment? Obviously, other than the storyline, is there anything else you'd like to share with any of the players?
I can't talk really about it at all, but my focus is the next thing.
The next thing.
after. So I've got to get these guys wound up and started doing desert while I focus on. I'm really nervous. I'm just going to randomly. I've been awful.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
This week I keep spoiling things, and I'm usually pretty good at it, so I don't trust myself to say anything more than that. But yeah,
I'm trying.
whatever's coming next, that's what my focus is currently on.
No, of course, definitely. How about you both? Anything that you'd like to add or discuss? Anything that you want to share with players?
I just kind of like to state that I'm really looking forward to seeing the desert storyline being finished off. It's something I'm very excited about. I find it very compelling mythology around the characters and so forth there. So I'm really glad that we've got that on the schedule, and I know you're going to do a really great job delivering it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's honestly so exciting. Like the comments, everything that we've been seeing from players across socials have been amazing about the desert storyline. I can't wait to get into it because I've just gone through about halfway through the desert storyline, I believe. I've just made it to the city, which is the furthest south. I'm trying to remember the name. I'm still new. Don't hate me.
Softening?
Menopause?
Menopause, there we go. It's great, I love it. But anyway, I want to thank you all for coming to join me. Thank you for obviously the wonderful JMods for joining us to chat lore, and to you for all your great questions, the community. We will be right back, and then it's time to talk about the future of skilling. We will see you very soon. Soon. Oh, hi. Welcome back. And yes, we are back yet again for another panel. This time we are talking about skilling. Let's go. So skilling is a hot topic at the moment. We know this. So between our recent 110 release and now our upcoming skilling boss, so this should be a juicy one. So yes, please again, remember we want your opinions and questions as part of this discussion. So interact with us, drop any questions where the amazing mod Azana, I will keep dropping his name in because he is brilliant. He's going to be dropping the questions into our chat. So please include them where we can. So returning to join me to chat skilling is Mod Jack again. Hello.
Hi. They told me I have to sit here now. There's some sort of arcane science where they decide where everyone sits. I don't really understand it.
Yeah, well, I needed him here, you know. I know that some people have asked where Mod Hooli is. He is going to come back, don't worry. We have the amazing Mod Stu. Hello.
Hello, I am so back.
He is so back, yes. And welcome to the wonderful Mod Luma. Hi.
Hello.
Amazing, amazing. So with lore, we should also talk about the RuneScape Ahead announcements first. So we've got 4 skills going into 110 in the next 9 months. So what can you tell us and why did we pick these skills?
Do you want this one, Stu?
That sounds like a high-level strategy.
Well, I suppose
Oh.
so, yeah. The answer's a bit pedestrian, actually. It's sort of, if we're going to have skills that make high-level combat gear, then we'd prefer not to leave it too long before the styles get balanced, essentially. So it's not that exciting a question. It's you know, mining and smithing does melee, woodcutting and fletching does ranged. So then the tricky question was then, there isn't a completely unambiguously established skill for magic weapons.
Right.
You could make an argument for crafting. Rune crafting is a better fit, but rune crafting isn't the magic weapon skill. It's the runes skill. So, but yeah, we had to look at, you know, what's the best choice here, and rune crafting fit for that.
Right.
And then time to then move on to armor with crafting, because smithing has already been done.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to have, I think we have a, do we have a, yes, we do. What do we, there it is, the wonderful for rune crafting. So obviously this is something that did excite a lot of people. I do remember this. But as we expect to take a similar approach for all 4, or will the 2 singular release be a little different than the dual release? We'll see for the next 210 updates.
I would expect woodcutting and fletching to play out fairly similarly to mining and smithing. Obviously, we have some feedback we might want to get into from what we've learned from mining and smithing. We don't want to necessarily repeat things exactly the same way.
Yeah.
For the other 2, because there is no associated gathering skill, or no directly, you know, tightly tied gathering skill, we are going to have to think about how that's going to work out differently.
Right.
Like where the material's going to come from. We haven't started on that yet, I don't think.
We were supposed to do our first design session this afternoon, but yeah,
we got a bit distracted by
we do this live stream.
But that was forward going and fletching, right? We have we have preliminary ideas for rune crafting and crafting, and I'm actually quite interested to just discuss it openly with people on Discord. Now that we've been a bit more open about the roadmap, that's a positive aspect of that. We can just start. Well, let's just start casually designing it on Discord, you know.
Oh yeah. Just get all that feedback.
It doesn't have to be. It's completely different to doing a quest. It doesn't have to be secret, you know. We can just openly talk about it. I was talking about potential fletching rebalance, like.
Yeah.
Middle of last year, I think. When was it? Like re-tiering the woods and stuff like that. Let's just go talk about it.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, we can start discussing that.
Yeah, I mean, we do put a lot of places on our social channels. We make sure that we are trying to get as much feedback from all of you as possible, as much as possible. So we are putting surveys out. We are getting the amazing mods who are going up on socials and creating the threads themselves. So please do interact with them. Please do give us your feedback because it does make a difference. But on to, I suppose, the next question. We do have, so probably our vaguest announcement of the show, but arguably, I can't say the word, but arguably a really important one was the focus on the skilling for profitability. What's our thinking on this problem and where did it come from? How are we looking to approach it?
I don't have much more information to give on this at this stage. Again, this is the problem with looking so far into the future, is that there's actually quite a lot of time and work that goes into actually designing the project so that there's anything to say about it. But the inspiration here is the player survey. One of the big results that came back from that was a desire to see skilling be more profitable. if I remember correctly, it was not asking for PVM to be nerfed. It was asking for skilling to be brought up. I think we made that distinction.
Right.
And so it's essentially, this is the kind of thing that always ends up slipping through the cracks. It's sort of a vague aspiration. Oh yeah, we should really do something about that at some point. Let's see if we can achieve that via some update. So in this case, we said, like, it's such a strong result. Let's make sure we are allotting time for it on the roadmap. We're loudly saying we're going to do it.
Right.
The first step of doing that is figuring out, well, what are we actually going to do? What does this even mean? Who are we talking about?
Yeah.
What do we mean when we say skilling wants to be profitable? Because there are elements of skilling that are already profitable.
Right.
So clearly the people who are saying they want skilling to be profitable aren't talking about that. Are they people who are just AFKing and want AFKing to be more profitable? Because if so, that could be a bit of a problem for the economy.
Of course.
Or are they people who are sort of looking at some of the astronomical amounts of money that PVM can make and saying, I want to be able to get that without doing there's a lot to dig into of who and how and why. But essentially what we've done is just allot time to investigating and making progress on that problem.
Of course, yeah.
That could be just creating a new piece of content that is profitable, or it could be going in and looking at rebalancing old content, something that ought to be profitable but isn't because of some quirk of the way that it works.
Right.
But that investigation just needs to happen as part of the project itself.
Yeah, makes sense. Definitely makes sense.
It's only a tricky thing to balance. I mean, one of the goals for the accidental fetching and fire making update that I did, was it last year? What was that it was meant to be a profitable money-making method for skillers, and in practice, well, that means, well, okay, if it's a money-making method, then that means that it's problematic for Ironmen because they're not going to operate within that economy. So there's the DIY aspects of it, and then with aspects around demand. You know, if the focus is making ammunition for people, and for it to be profitable, has to be in high demand, and therefore consequently issues around the consumption rate of ammo and so forth. So it's all a very complicated interlocking web of aspects. So I don't envy the person who works on that. I'm not sure if that's going to be me, but whoever it is, good luck.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think you might be busy with, well, we haven't allotted the work yet, but I think you might be busy with 110 crafting at the same time. So
cool.
We'll have to see. Yeah.
There we go, handing out the jobs as we go. So I suppose, what in general do we feel we've learnt from skillers? Most from, especially in the player survey, have we learnt much about them at all?
Funnily enough, I think one of the biggest results from the survey was, sorry, I should be clear with my terminology here. I've had a few discussions on Discord about this recently. When we're talking about skillers, we're not talking about skill peers. And I get slightly irritated where people think that skill peer is a useful term.
Right.
Well, people can call themselves whatever they want, right? But don't sort of adopt the term. We use it more broadly to mean people whose primary interest is skills in leveling skills. That's the main reason they play the game.
In the same sense of like PVM as
exactly,
pillars.
Yeah. And so when we're talking about skillers there, one of the big findings I think from the survey is there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like, because the social media, I would say, is fairly dominated by engaged high-end players who tend to be more focused on PVM and to an extent lore, but less so than PVM.
Right.
But that isn't necessarily reflective of the proportions of the player base themselves. So there's this huge sea of skillers just diligently getting on, working hard, leveling their skills, not necessarily talking about it. And we analyse data, but it can be hard to pick apart in the data.
Right.
Because we can see player data of what players are doing. We don't know whether you're leveling the skill because you feel like you have to in order to access a different piece of content, or because that's the primary reason you want to play the game in the first place. And so one of the, we have older data for this, but it's really interesting to see in the survey, like skillers are the largest, am I getting this wrong? I think this is correct.
No.
The largest subgroup.
Yeah, it surprised me as well. Because like you say, like anecdotally, I feel like everyone is just PVM focused and very high-end PVM. So seeing that actually most people are skillers is quite a nice surprise.
That's great. That's great. We are obviously, as you can see, the chat is going crazy. But don't worry, we do have Modazana, who is very kindly feeding us those questions. But on to the next question. So obviously, nowadays, what is the overarching vision for skilling in RuneScape, and how have we progressed towards it?
It's a complicated topic. I think, the 110 shows sort of one aspect of that, which is that skilling is about leveling.
Right.
And I think we ended up sort of trapped in a situation where taking skills to 120 or releasing new skills was the only way people could have that leveling experience.
Right, yeah.
And 110s, like, it's too early to say whether it's a successful experiment, right? Like, we should always keep an eye on how things are going.
Yeah.
Release a few updates, see how they're going. We're not locked into doing things in a particular way, but they are our current attempt to sort of get back to the idea that skills are about leveling.
Right.
That isn't a sort of, because obviously one of the pieces of feedback that we've got from mining and smithing is that leveling the skill for the sake of it isn't necessarily enough.
Yeah.
So then the second question, which is much more complicated to get, too complicated to get into now, I think is, what role do skills serve within the broader economy and identity of the game? How do skills interact with other things for people who don't just want to max for its own good? How do they interact within the economy?
Right.
Honestly, that's just something we need to continue to explore and experiment with. You mentioned like fletching and fire making. It's not exactly an unsuccessful experiment. I wouldn't call it that, but it was very contentious in terms of there was some obvious contention there around a difficult skilling method, which is annoying and inconvenient for people to do, and so they get supplies from other people. I would say is not an unambiguously good, way to design the whole game in that sense. So we're going to keep experimenting with different ways of having skills interact with the rest of the game. I would say it's not that we have a definitive solution to that problem. We just need to keep experimenting and seeing what resonates and what goes down well.
Definitely. And obviously, and how do you think our recent developments will impact the way players approach skilling?
That's an interesting one.
Because obviously we've got, as you said, we've got so many players who are primarily playing the game just for skilling, right? So it will be interesting to see how the new ways of us updating, how players are going to be taking this on board and how that's going to impact how we move forward with our updates.
This is only the first step, but I think that it's gone very well this first week. I'd say our active user engagement for mining smithing has been very positive. I think it's timed very nicely also with double XP. There's been a big surge of people. Here's a goal to keep you interested and keep you playing. I've heard from a lot of players and people internally who've it's given them a nice goal to work towards. You can break it down into a lot of short-term goals that you can chew on, and it's giving you something to do. And skilling feels nicely accessible and achievable, and at the same time you don't have that same sort of skill ceiling that you might have with PVM stuff. So I think can reach quite a broad audience.
Yeah, definitely. It has reached a lot of people. I mean, DXP definitely has helped me level up to where I am today. So thank you for that. But I suppose, we'll keep going into more questions because obviously there is a lot to cover with skilling. So what thematic elements are influencing our current and future skilling content?
It's with the desert pivot, there's an interesting one there of, you can clearly see with the mining and smithing rework, at the time where we were designing that, we were intending to do more this year with Billrack. And so that's why we looked at that.
Yeah.
Now that we've pivoted more to desert, it would make more sense. So I'm always looking for ways that we can get assets from one part of the game and use them in other parts of the game. It doesn't mean that we're locked into anything.
Right.
It doesn't mean we have to make desert content.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I like to try to line up projects so that they can complement each other in that regard, because then we just get more stuff basically.
Yeah.
So that isn't to say all content is desert now, but it's sort of those are the opportunities I would be looking for.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. On the other hand, there's a challenging intersection with narrative and skilling, because like for example, when we did the mining smithing rework, we tried to all the mining sites. We tried to ensure that all of the core mining sites are things that are easily accessible with just that skill. That you can access all of the core tiers of ores without necessarily needing a quest requirement to get to it. I mean, you can access a better resource through questing, but there needs to be like a mainline default of everything is accessible without extraneous requirements. So that kind of creates an interesting challenge when it comes to narrative. So people want things to make narrative sense. Why is there now some resources in Demon Harm that wasn't there previously? But if you tie those things into a particular point in the storyline, then it creates this kind of complexity of you need to understand where you are in the current storyline in order to just go and hit a rock. I think archaeology, I think, kind of had an issue in that sense. It was very deeply and wonderfully tied into a lot of story, but it was also like it locks that skill to a particular point in time of where we're like, okay, Zaros is still around, it's around the monolith and so forth, and then if the storyline evolves, then I think we probably have to decouple skilling from narrative more. I think from a practical standpoint, that's my perspective. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's been a bit of a problem in the past. I think there's an intuitive expectation for some people that the content will be tied into the story in a very direct way. So I think I said this to you explicitly of like it shouldn't be that there is a story that this thing has just happened and it's unlocked by a quest or that sort of thing. That's not the right way to approach skilling content.
Yeah,
it could be if it was sort of a quest unlock, but not for baseline stuff.
Yeah, so like internalized narrative is good, but if we locked us to a certain point in the longer storyline, we have to kind of think about the long term when you're engaging with those skills. Yeah,
I think as well, just in general, trying not to design it in a contrived way. Like, obviously desert stuff is happening next year, and obviously the mining smithing update was kind of guided a little bit by Billrack, but at the same time, dungeoneering rules just fit really nicely, I think, with that update. It felt RuneScapey. So just because we are doing desert updates next year doesn't mean we should design a skilling around that if it doesn't make sense too. So
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So in terms of like the skilling evolving over the next few years, like where do you see, what role will the community play into that? How do we feel? Will they influence new skills? Will they influence the current skills that we have? Like how much of the community feedback is influencing our decisions in what's coming next into RuneScape?
Well, speaking on an update by update basis, with mining and smithing, it was very important to us to get player feedback on the kind of design we're doing, being very transparent about the aims, what the project was trying to achieve, what the constraints. Okay, this is the core content that I want and needs to deliver, and there's a lot of things that we could improve around the skills as well, but those are like stretch goals. The primary thing is here's a new tier of content, has a tool that you're working towards, and so forth. I've forgotten where I was going. Do you want to answer?
No, of course. I mean, I'm just going to throw a fun question here. Like in terms of your skilling, what's been your favorite skills that you have worked on, if there has been any?
I really enjoyed the crocodile hunter method.
Oh yeah.
Headspace. I enjoy hunter. Like creating content for it is something you can be very creative with. It's got animals. So
what's been your favorite, would you say, in terms of the hunter? Have you maxed hunter yet? I think that was one of my top ones.
Yes. Yeah, I've maxed hunter. Yeah.
Oh nice.
99. Yeah. Yeah. Headspace's crocodiles going to catch scarabs with the crocodiles, I think.
That's been quite fun. I tried to get my hunter skill up through that. I didn't really understand what you had to do until I clicked on one of the crocodiles and I was like, oh, and then you click on the scarab, I get it. But I suppose that's not really something you can AFK, right? You have to do it manually. Or is there another way to do it?
It was kind of balanced to be, you can do it very click intensive or you can do it a little bit less click intensive. It's not quite AFK, but I think in general it's a nice balance to hit when you're designing skill and content. Having something that's a bit more suitable for AFK players, but if people want to engage more and be more click intensive, they can do that to gain more XP.
Yeah, for sure. That's nice. I am going to see, there's lots of community questions in there, so thank you, but I do want to go through. Are we allowed to talk about the new skill, or I say the new skill, but in terms of that rune crafting for next year? Is that something we're allowed to talk about?
We don't have much to say about it at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, as I said, like I'm keen to start having open discussions with players about expectations and what we can do and what we should do. We've been chatting a bit about it.
Yes.
Today and yesterday, actually. But it's early days yet, but
it's coming.
Keen to have those discussions. It's not, the design has not started yet. The guys are busy now with cutting and fletching, so it'll be a while. But we can start to sort of set expectations and figure out what it is we need to do. One of the big questions for me, for example, is I think you would intuitively expect a new tier of rune crafting to come with a new rune.
Yes.
But the game doesn't really need a new rune.
Right.
Doesn't say we can't add one.
Right.
But it's not like it's screaming out for one.
Yeah.
And so adding it for the sake of it is maybe not the best idea. So that's not to say we won't do it or we will do it, but that's the sort of complex design discussion that we need to have.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Trying to figure out those problems. That's why I was trying to find a way of having runecrafting not be the magic weapon skill, but that was even worse.
Yeah, of course. So this is a fun one, I suppose. What are the most innovative ideas we've considered for future skilling content?
Innovative. Should I say it? Mug destroyed the comment by saying about. Well, I keep trying to fix rune crafting, right? So I'm like, well, stackable essence, destroy the game. The wackiest one I've got is make divination energy be what you make runes out of rather than rune essence.
Interesting.
Divination energy itself feels like it's in a slightly strange place.
Right, okay.
Both mechanically and lore-wise. But
yeah.
I honestly don't think big changes like that are the right approach to Rune to making changes to RuneScape. I think like it's sort of, that's why it's wacky and innovative, right? It's not necessarily a good idea.
Yeah, of course.
But that's why it's fun to have design discussions of sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose going on that, I mean, how do we ensure that skilling remains engaging and rewarding for all types of players, basically?
That might be one for you, Luma, because the active skilling.
Yeah. I mean, I think whenever I've been designing skilling content, it's always making sure that there is that balance. There is that balance of choice for players who do want to be more active and players who do want to be more AFK. I think just keeping keeping that in mind going forward as well. But I think for me that's the main thing.
Is it a long process in terms of deciding how these tend to work?
Not really. It's mainly down to balancing and having a bit of, a mechanic for the more active players. But it's something that I would consider in the design from the start. So it's not really a load of work that you're adding on later in development.
Is it something that community influence how you make these skills as well? Like, do you tend to find that you look towards a lot of players for guidance in terms of what they want?
Yes.
Like, does that influence your decision in it?
Yes, that is tricky though.
Yeah.
I think especially like I've seen in seasonal events, like people love really AFK stuff, like the dungeoneering holes, tables at the Christmas village. But like, there's the question of is being able to AFK dungeoneering to 99.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of people do. Like the best thing for skills. So there's that question. So yes, listen to players, but also try and look at what is best for the skill. Try and find a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's definitely that balance. Right, I think we are going to go into some community questions, so hold on to your seats. So we got B-Smite. Question here is, what's the reason for not including 110 fire making with the upcoming 110 fletching woodcutting, since fire making and woodcutting used to go hand in hand?
From a purely practical standpoint at scope, I mean, each one of these updates is going to be about 2 or 3 months. We're aiming to have a rapid cadence on them. So yeah, doing one skill is complicated enough. Throw in fire making as well, you're just stretching yourself too thin.
Yeah.
I put it on the list of stretch goals for the project.
You kind of keep trying to do that. Yeah.
Also do 110 fire making. I mean, one option that we do have. The problem with fire making is like, do we also fix fire making? Actually, just taking fire. So if there's going to be a new log, just letting you burn the log isn't that much work, right? And then letting fire making go to 110 also isn't that much work. But it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, but once you touch fire making, people saying, well, make fire making useful then, and then the scope increases.
We could just take it to 110, but that may not be what people are wanting from it. I suspect they might like it to do something.
So there's still some influence there from players if they want it, if they don't want it. Is that something that is a deciding factor?
That's absolutely how we make the decisions. It's sort of like what time do we have, and how can we make people happy?
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately what we're here for.
If you want it, talk about it.
There's a similar question that's come up in the chat a few times. Why isn't Hunter the gathering skill for crafting? So we do have the option of doing that. I didn't want to. That was my original pitch, was that it would be Hunter and crafting.
Right.
But I'm not. Again, because we're talking a long way into the future, we haven't designed it. We haven't looked at the scope of that. We haven't looked at whether that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to present the update as that on the roadmap.
Right.
It's not a Hunter and crafting update because it might not make sense to do Hunter as well. For me, that makes sense, but I haven't investigated whether that's actually a good idea.
Right.
So that is not what we're claiming it will be.
Yeah, so it might be that some of the ingredients in that equipment comes from Hunter, but we're not necessarily going to mandate that from the beginning. Yeah.
We've got our next question from Grey Crimson. Will active skilling methods become more rewarding after the rebalance?
That's probably a reference to the rebalance project, to which the answer is we don't know because we don't know what that project looks like yet.
Right. Yes.
It may be, I mean, active skilling is probably one of the potential solutions to that question of, you know, if skilling has become very AFK, then it's very easy to like run multiple accounts and it's implicitly not profitable.
Right.
So the answer is maybe, but it depends on what that project ends up being.
Maybe. There we go. So we got one from RuneScape. With next year's focus on skilling, economy, money making, how much focus will there be on comparing skilling and combat money making methods based on effort, activity, entry cost, maintenance, and other factors? That's a big question. There we go.
The answer's probably the same as the previous one. It kind of depends on what that ends up being.
Right, yeah.
I would say, like, to an extent, the economy fixes itself. Alkables and alk floors disturb that, but otherwise, in a sense, all of those factors are already priced into the economy. If it's more accessible, it's less profitable. That's just how content works. One of the ways that we can address this is to make less accessible content.
Right.
If it's less accessible, it's more profitable, but then that means you might not want to do it. So
that makes sense. That makes sense.
It's tricky.
We have one from Harrison McLean. For the skilling update, is the main plan for profitability improvement to be based on adding more demand side item sinks and consumption utility, or on supply side constriction and time gating of production, or both?
I think it's the same again.
Same again, right?
Yeah, yeah, we have to look at this when we come to it.
Yeah, no, of course. Just keep going through more questions. So we got one from As a Delta. What happens when regular completionist capes? When all skills are 120? It will be just an OG skin for comp cake, since master comp is 120 or plus current comp. I think I read that right.
That question's make my brain hurt.
That hurt my brain. That hurt my brain.
I think they're saying because master comp is 120 all, will the base comp be 120 all?
I believe so.
We haven't thought about that too much.
Okay.
A few years off.
It's a while away. I think we'll worry about that question when we come to it. I think.
I mean, where we currently stand is that comp requires the master skill achievement, which requires the highest non-virtual level in every skill. So as we increase the level cap for these skills, that in turn affects comp cap.
There's a potential world where we say, you know what, actually the right place for comp is 99 all, and the right place for master comp is 120 all. We could make that change. Whether we need to or not will kind of depend on what the game is looking like at the time.
Right, right. We have one from that one. There will be plans to include new scaling methods that are high intensity, high difficulty training methods such as Hallowed
Sepulchre.
Thank you. On the OSRS side, added to RuneScape 3, skinning instead of things being skewed to AFK.
I guess an important thing to emphasize is that the 110 skills aren't by default making any quality of life improvements to these skills or adding new skilling methods. It's about adding in a new tier of content at 100 and some goals around that. Here's a hatchet to work towards, here's a convoluted masterwork sword, something that involves a lot of interaction and is making you use that skill. But yeah, in terms of like adding in varied engagement methods, that's just not within the scope of those 110 updates.
Right.
That doesn't mean we can't also make those updates. It's a balanced thing there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's worth saying that we're about to make another skilling boss, or not make. We're making a skilling boss.
Yes,
about to launch another skilling boss.
Yeah.
That is in great part like trying to meet these goals.
Yeah.
If what we want is a high intensity method for every skill, I mean, that's a huge number of updates. Like I can see the desire for that. But that is multiple years of updates just to do that. So it's. I mean, in terms of asking about the players, it's partly a desire thing. Is the desire there for it? Would people rather have this or that?
Yeah, absolutely.
In a lot of cases, those tend to be quite big updates.
Yeah.
Well, what's your experience of Heads Oasis, Luma? Because that was quite active.
That was quite active. It was more popular, I think, than I thought. But I think, again, back to the AFK versus active. Yeah, AFK versus active, like you didn't have to be very click intensive if you want, but it is very good XP, and I think people do like having that option.
Is it for agility?
For Hunter.
Oh, for the Hunter,
Yeah, for the
yes.
Hunter one.
Because I remember, yeah, I've just got to, I believe 65. Well, I've just gone past 65 on agility. And apparently, that's a very long agility course, which I'm quite looking forward to doing.
Anacronia.
Sorry.
Oh, no, Anacronia.
An Oasis.
Oh,
Hetz
I see,
Oasis.
I see.
Yeah,
Right,
Hetz
right.
Oasis. Yeah. We've got one from Matt the Woolhead. Will you rebalance PVM, drop tables? Sorry. Will you rebalance PVM drop tables to shift the primary source of skilling supplies to skilling?
That's something
Supply
we've been
system. There we go.
experimenting with varying degrees of success. I like with a lot of these, I wouldn't say that that's been like an obvious win.
Yeah.
It's something that we need to like. The game has changed, the audience has changed. A lot of the time, like it hasn't. I think we've experimented with this a few times. It hasn't necessarily shifted the profit over to skillers.
Right.
It isn't necessary. I'm not saying it isn't the right solution, but what we have so far doesn't show that that is just definitely a good solution. It's tended to shift, you know, like someone who's just multi-logging loads of accounts all day is getting an advantage from that. The casual skiller who's logging on for an hour in the evening isn't seeing much benefit from stuff being removed from drop tables. So it's not necessarily fixing that problem. We just keep looking and experimenting.
All right.
Well, I mean, with mining and smithing, we did a great initiative to take the ores and the bars off drop tables and bring them more into the skilling space. But that's also created things like stone spirits and salvage and so forth, which, you know, it's solved the problem, but also, like from a PVM perspective, people feel sad if they don't get it unless the things are very valuable. Having said that, the value of these things are spiking now that we've got a nice sync coming in with wanting mining and smithing, so it bounces back and forth.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we could talk about this all day, but it's obviously, again, because it's been such a big topic for a lot of players, unfortunately, we do have a time restraint on this. So I want to thank you so much for everybody. This is where many of us do bid adieu, unfortunately, as we hand on over to the one final panel, which is going to be combat. I know that's going to be a big one with Mod Hooli and co. So this is the only one of us deemed worthy, who is Mod Jack, to carry on chatting, unfortunately. So thanks so much for joining me, all three of you. It's been an absolute blast. This is where I will also be saying adieu, unfortunately. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Mod Tim. Jack.
Close.
Mod Tim.
To be fair, it is really confusing.
Mod Stu and Mod Luma. I want to say thank you to all three of you for joining me today. It's been wonderful. And yes, we'll see you very, very soon. Don't go away. Don't stay too long. Bye.
Hey everyone, and I'm delighted to be back to see out the show. I can't believe we're already at the end, it's flown by. But we have a fantastic roster of JMods here because we're going to talk about combat. As with the last couple of sections, don't forget, we're going to put the focus on some conversation around our newly announced content first, but then we're going to get to a broader discussion on combat in general. So think about questions, not just about what we've announced, but also anything you've been thinking about with combat. This is your time to grill the team, they're here for that reason. So, with that said, let's introduce this veritable group of JMods who are combat experts. So first up, we have the mod who has a perma-fixture on the couch, though has moved around. Mod Jack, hello.
Total combat expert.
I'm also joined by Mod Ryan.
Hello.
You're supposed to do total combat expert.
Oh,
No, they actually are combat experts.
Mod Sponge.
Hello. Not an expert.
And then finally, but certainly not least, Mod Roman.
Hello.
Hello. I didn't call you Delightful this time. It feels weird.
You also didn't call me an expert.
So let's get to the questions. Let's talk RS ahead first, right? So we had some great combat announcements in there first. We had combat mastery achievements as our first new announcement of 2025. So some people may know these from OSRS in terms of the theme and kind of style of content it is. For those who might not know, what do we mean by this? What does this bring to the game? Why is this a great PVM update to have put on the roadmap?
Yeah, so combat mastery achievements. The easiest way to talk about it, I guess, is if you're familiar with area tasks, you have easy, medium, hard, and elite. We're kind of wanting to do that, but for combat specifically. So this takes into, to emphasize, we also want to do more than just elite. So we want to move into master and grandmaster territory. So this is essentially about giving the combat experts, from easy through to grandmaster, the opportunity to show off their combat skills and, to be honest, really truly challenge the best players in the game to show that they are a grandmaster at combat. These achievements are essentially, the aim is, I guess you might have seen as a player already, like there are players out there setting their own sort of achievements, like 200 kill streak, 4,000% Glaycore, stuff like that. And maybe we might look to acknowledge those like sort of as grandmaster achievements. That's kind of the quick overview, but yeah, old school, of course, have combat mastery already. So it's something it's been mentioned to us a lot as an example of it. But yeah, we're looking to do something similar. So I don't know if can I give a lot of details now? Or?
Yeah, I was going to say, because one of the things that I saw come out of the announcement is some people kind of had a slight feel for them and were highlighting things in our blog to say like, oh, I guess they're going to have specific kinds of kills for these challenges. Do you have any examples of what a combat mastery achievement might be? It doesn't have to be one that actually exists, but like to give an indication of what that might be. And then feel free to dive into a whole bunch of detail as well.
Do you want to cover any? I can give some.
Well, obviously we're going to be looking towards the players and seeing what they want, as we would with this sort of thing, because combat's so big. But like, there's some off the top of my head that I'm kind of like, that'd be pretty cool. You know, like complete an entire elite dungeon in one run without banking in, I don't know, 5 minutes. Obviously, 5 minutes is extreme, but that's the sort of thing that I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You asked, wait, what was the question? I had a thought.
It was about examples of combat mastery
examples.
achievements. Like what kind of things does this mean as a gameplay experience?
I was too busy thinking about like what to say next. But yeah, no. So yeah, when it comes to these sorts of achievements, I'm thinking a lot about like, so Mod Pigeon, he can't be here today, but he's working on this sort of project.
Shout out to
shout out Mod Pigeon. We're looking at things like whether we can categorize them, something old school did as well. So you can categorize something into like a mechanical achievement, which tests your ability to deal with the mechanics in the right way. Things like time. So between the tiers, the Grandmaster time will be the hardest time to achieve. It will require like perfection of the encounter. So there's some of the categories. Perfect is a category old school have. We're trying to take what old school have done and mix it up a little. To learn from it, but yeah, the sorts of things you can expect. It's easier to talk about the Grandmaster tier because it's the hardest things, but you can expect like to be a Grandmaster, you'll probably have to be able to do every single boss at the absolute like maximum for like to get the kill time achievements for them, to master them from a mechanics perspective, potentially to master them as a toolkit perspective. So can you defeat a boss in a certain way that really tests your combat knowledge? Because if we ask you, for example, this isn't an achievement, but it's a good example. If we said to you, do a boss without taking any damage, there are many ways you can nullify damage, but when you take it to different encounters, it means different things. You've got to worry about cooldowns, what abilities are coming up, how do I dodge 3 attacks all at once? There's a lot of nuance to it. They're the sort of things we're looking at the high level. Of course, from easy up to there, we are looking as well to kind of help you bridge you into the content. It's not our main focus, but you might find that you're doing a boss you enjoy, and you've got you look at it like, oh, I look at RAraxxor, oh, I'm only 13 seconds off my best kill time. Maybe I'm going to go for that. I'm only 13 seconds off the next achievement in the tier list. So I'm going to try and aspire to get that.
That's awesome. No, that was actually one of the questions I'm going to have is like, you know, you say combat mastery, that immediately says, okay, top tier PVMers. So is the hope that, you know, those easy mediums are truly a bit of an onboarding, kind of a push to, hey, if you're getting into bossing, this is kind of a new attainable goal to think about and maybe aim for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also worth like clarifying that these achievements will be top heavy. It's more about like when we come to specifics, we've already got achievements for kill count. We'll potentially add kill times for some of the lower bosses, but for the most part, we're looking more at the top heavy side. I think old schools are top heavy. There's more achievements in the Grandmaster section. There is a question in the chat related. Can I bring it up?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, there was a comment regarding completionist. We are quite early in design, and we want to involve yourselves, as Mod Sponge mentioned. But when it comes to like completionist cape, what does this mean? So we're not going to ask, I think at the moment from our design aims, we are not going to ask you to complete Grandmaster for the completionist cape. Grandmaster is about you standing out from the crowd separately.
Yeah.
Like not everything needs to be part of completionist. It really like, it's more about, I love combat. I am a master of combat. It's too early to say, but our view, I guess, of Grandmaster is like, if you see someone that, I'm not going to spoil any of our reward designs, but if you see anyone and you look at them and you go, holy shit, they're a Grandmaster combat player, like that is what we're looking for.
By the way, I love that we get 2 swear words in the show, and that's how we used one. That was a good use.
I apologize.
I don't know if I missed one earlier.
I didn't realise. I should have used
Hogging the swears.
I apologize.
It's also weird saying swear words out loud. I feel younger now.
It would almost interfere with what you're trying to achieve, right? If Grandmaster was on comp, suddenly there'd be a whole argument about accessibility and like, oh, is it too hard? And you don't want to have a is it too hard discussion, right?
No, exactly. I think to give an example, again, really early design, so don't quote it, but it might be that completionist is easy to elite. And we leave Master and Grandmaster to like show off how good you are separately.
It's like exceeding the,
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That was a great segue into that next question. So I wanted to ask, which bosses are you most excited to slap some disastrously difficult Grandmaster achievements on?
It's got to be Solak, surely.
I knew you were going to say Solak.
Solak
You're the baby.
Has so many different things you could do, like never miss a pad, you know, no realm, 1 cycle core, do what they call rootlings, rootlings in a certain amount of time. It has that one most excited about.
Yeah, I think
bit biased, but
this is a release I'm really excited about because I can't wait to see like everyone as it comes out racing to do them first. It's almost like we're going to get a boss race through the greatest hits of bosses, which is crazy.
You get to go back and see just things like obviously you went back and collection logs, so you got to really see things, but this is going to make you play them in a different light, which will be super cool.
It gives us the opportunity as well. I will stop prefacing, but this is so early, so this could change. But the idea would be as well, if you think about Daredevil right now, the achievement, we have spoken about over time, like the idea of Golden Daredevil, which is the idea of doing all of these feats in one encounter. Yeah. So we might be like considering looking at those things for other bosses. So, you know, maybe there is 10 achievements between Elite and Master, but the Grandmaster one is do all of them in the same encounter. So that kind of like adds that extra layer of, maybe it's easy to do one in isolation, but if we ask you to do all of them at the same time, you have to change up your strat to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think
it's almost metagaming, right?
Yeah. I'm maybe hesitant to say it, but I think that some of the best things we could do is design some achievements that we're not even sure if they're possible and put them in Grandmaster, because it puts us in a position where combat players, like some of our combat players are insane at the game. And I think that there is an opportunity for us to try, I think, make it not sound impossible, but like put an achievement out there where we're like, see if you can get it. Maybe. And if they get it done, they get it done. If they don't, we change it. But you know, just some of that sort of stuff.
What I love is like chat is like challenge accepted, like straight away.
Like we discussed that a lot in-house when designing things. It's like, cool, we maybe think this would be impossible. Yeah. But like players will always figure out a way. They also get a lot more hands-on time than us, so they can throw hours and hours and hours. And we're obviously, as we're deving, we're like, okay, we can give that only so much and then pass it on. But yeah, no, players always prove us wrong, and that is a good sort of thing to have in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, players are experts. Yeah,
They are,
exactly.
they are.
They definitely, you know, they're always going to be the peak of the game, right, in terms of skill.
Yeah.
So.
There's some.
One RS guy's like at the moment for me saying that. But
There's some comments in the chat that kind of cover it. We will talk about combat mastery a lot more in the future, but there are comments about designing for like the 0.0%. I think this is an update specifically when we talk about Grandmaster. It's the easy example to talk about, that it's okay to design for the few.
Yep.
Because especially from an investment time, but also we have players dedicated that have created their own achievements over time. People go out there and say like, hey, I've done, like I said, 200 kill streak, 4K, stuff like that. And I think there is an opportunity for us to acknowledge some of these achievements with an actual like thing in game. So if I could have an achievement that you can inspect me and it says my favorite achievements, it says I've done 200 kill streak Glacial. There's a sort of nice things to have. But yeah. Early designs, we could talk about forever. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things, right, we've got a big focus on variety in general. So like even if one combat update comes around and maybe it's a bit too tough for you, there's probably another one coming in a not too distant future.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say where there will be something for you, right? Like Sanctum for me is a great example. I can do normal mode, hard mode I'm too much of a scrub to do, but hard mode worked great for me. So yeah, that's a great thing. On that note, is there anything more you want to say on combat? Achievements at this point, by the way.
Yes, we're on the panel.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm like.
But then you added achievements at the end.
Okay, it was my thing. So just before I go on to talking a little bit about Massacre, and then we'll go into general combat, there are a couple of small updates that we should talk about in here. So we've got the Slayer creature that's coming. For someone who might not have read, I don't think many people have read the article, so for a lot of people this will be a bit of a drop. Do you want to explain? I'm going to steal that. Do you want to explain what the Slayer creature is and the Necromancy helm stuff and everything coming from the Slayer helmet?
It's a Slayer creature and it drops an item.
That was basically what the video said. Don't do that to the people.
You attach to the Slayer helm to turn Necromancy on for it. No, it's kind of it's more of a smaller update. We want to kind of get back to those frequent content releases. So we have big projects assigned to us like combat achievements. So we're kind of like, cool, what small bits can we kind of just fit in here and there? And a new Slayer creature was one of them. Kind of give players what they want because they've been asking for the Necro Slayer helm for so long. So we're introducing, the plan is currently a new type of Scabarite, obviously going back towards that desert theme. But yeah, that's kind of all there is to say about it.
Year of the Desert, hey?
Yeah,
so.
Get sandy.
Yeah, so you'll be getting that, what we're targeting late September, October. Okay, well, I've seen it on the roadmap, so it's like, I think we're targeting late September, October for that one.
End of it.
And then quickly, there's another small update coming much sooner. Fourth Conjure.
Oh yeah, yeah. The fourth Conjure. It's a small update. It's a fourth Conjure. Yeah. So again, if you haven't seen it, seen the road ahead, we are bringing a Phantom to the game as the fourth Conjure. It's called the Phantom Guardian. It's focused around being more defensive. Yeah, that's it. It's not. So this sort of update to emphasize like Sponge's point, we especially like as a RuneScape team, but also like specifically from a combat perspective, we can talk more to it. We're trying to produce like more updates more frequently. Like if it's a weird example to give maybe, but like if we could rework a bit of auras here and there, that would be nice. That's not a leak, but I'm just saying it'd be nice to do something like that.
It's gonna go.
Yeah, it'd be nice to like take some time to fix something with like the Revolution boss, you know, things like that. So like the fourth Conjure is an example of that, where it's not like a, you know, we're going to make a big banner and say, here's a new fourth Conjure, this is how you get it. Like, it is going to be, you know, it's going to be in the skill tree. It adds to essentially what we planned to release with the original Necromancy, with the four basic Conjures, so Skeleton, Zombie, Ghost, and Phantom. It is what it says on the tin. You'll conjure it, it will do its thing, and that's it. What are you laughing at? What have I done?
No, you haven't done it.
It's essentially, chat basically did Panic Cell auras, essentially, and their loyalty points. Panic Cell loyalty points, sorry.
There's some stuff, like I saw some players freaking out, like, oh, this thing isn't on the roadmap, this thing isn't on the roadmap. But a lot of those things were like smaller things, so you can look at stuff like Elite Tectonic. That is something that we as a Elite Tectonic set phase, sorry. That's something as a combat team we want to do. But it's kind of the sort of thing we just slot in.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, actually, that we didn't really discuss. I probably should have covered this with Markos earlier on the roadmap. The roadmap we did earlier in the year had a lot of those smaller updates in because we knew we wanted to do them. And, you know, we were also aware we'd been quieter. We kind of owed you as comprehensive a look as we could give you with the roadmap as we could. this new roadmap release, we're so far ahead, we don't actually know what a lot of those small releases are because we will be nimble and react, right? So like just because they're not on there, I think it's fair to say they will exist. We just don't know what they look like, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool. I mean, the combat team. I'm looking at Carl. He's not with us right now. He's working on the skilling boss. But
I am returning home soon. It's all good.
But yeah, we're using us as an example. We're broken up a little. Like we help each other out with different projects, but we want to get a bit of a mix in there. So while Pigeon's working on combat mastery, we might support it. But Sponge is doing a Slayer update. I'm doing the 4th Conjure. If we can pick up little things here and there, we would like to. The list is huge. The list is endless, of course, but that's where we kind of like, as I'm sure you players have been seeing, we're a lot more transparent as of late. So yeah, maybe there's a world where we can find a way to sort of like let you know what our opportunities are and maybe allow yourselves to like help us direct those sort of smaller updates.
Someone in the chat is worried I'm not going to talk enough. I think I talked enough in the previous two. I'm happy for these guys to
There will
talk.
be times that, we expected this at the combat panel, especially because we have 3
I'm just here to make sure that Ryan doesn't leak the Aura reward.
Okay, so I'm just checking my time. We have about 15 minutes, so I want to get to your questions. So let's just quickly talk about a Mascot Showdown. We announced a new combat boss coming later in the year. It is so far ahead. It's pretty much a year from now almost, right? It's like a 9-10 months away at least. What do we kind of have as initial thinking around a Mascot Showdown? Like where our heads at in terms of what we want it to bring to the game and as a combat experience?
Yeah, I mean, look, every boss we do, we take learnings from, and I think we can all agree we saw a lot of learnings applied to Sanctum, specifically the level of accessibility with like the death loop mechanic in normal mode, and then the real step up in terms of difficulty in hard mode. There was a bit of something for everyone. Telegraphing especially, like that was huge. I've seen so many players turning around and saying, hey, I've never really been able to do something before, but like the level of telegraphing that this offered has made it super accessible for me. I can do it, and then I can even feel comfortable enough to take on hard mode. So telegraphing is massive, but you know, as I said, like we learn from every boss encounter we do, and they come once a year. The bigger ones come maybe less often, but the amount of time we spend sort of nattering on a lunch break about, oh, did you see this mechanic in this game or this mechanic in this game, and talking about how like one of the best things I think we do as a team is really work around and with the players' toolkit. Toolkit being all their abilities, all their defensives. There was a time where we used to just like say, oh, if you have your defensive on and we hit you with a red bomb gun, you take damage, and then we put all your things on cooldown. But now we've started to like really work within player mastery. If a player has a toolkit, they should be able to utilize it the way they want, but also with a little bit of a twist. Like with defensives, and Zamorak, we made it not the same as it was in previous bosses, where you just pop up a defensive and that's it. Nothing would like happen. You call your barricade, la-di-da-di-da. But instead we were like, cool, damage goes through that. And then we saw players layering defenses on top of each other. Same thing, we did with Warp Time. Give players their ability cooldowns back to them and see how they use them in different ways. Sanctum, great success. Like we're all super, super happy. The team did an absolutely fantastic job. But yeah, the main thing for me, telegraphing, and I think you'll see a lot of that going forward. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, as much as Raman mentioned the toolkit being really useful, I know people want to hear some more of the juicy details about like what can they expect from this sort of update. It is of course early. Like we're getting so far ahead with the roadmap. At this stage, we have a lot of ideas and like what we want to try to do. We have like sort of core aims. A bit about like what it is. I know in the news post, I think it says new end game boss.
It does.
I can't remember the specific term. But we've spoken a lot about how, I'll try to keep this spiel short, I guess, is that creating really hard encounters is great, but if it only appeals to a really small amount of audience, it's really difficult for us to justify making as a business. That's just the nature of it. Yeah. So we've tried, like with Sanctum, we tried to make something that kind of stretchier. We tried to make it feel hard and enjoyable for a high-level player, which we think we achieved, while also trying to make it accessible, approachable for your more average player. That being said, in most cases in life, I'm going to use maybe an example of learning to drive. Once you know how to do a thing, it's no longer hard. So it doesn't matter if the thing is hard, it's only hard for so long before it goes away. So something we have been talking about trying to explore with this update is taking away some of the toolkit from you and defining like a set of rules and releasing that sort of mode on release. So it's more like, here is the mode, here's the fight, but we've scaled it up. It does more damage, you take more damage, it's more restrictive. Potentially like we disable things like vulnerability bombs, like things we want to take out, we put you in, I'm going to use the term because it's used elsewhere, but like making like a competitive mode, a contest mode, like a this is just released hard mode, and it's available in the, say, the first week. And if you can get that done, then like you can say like I completed that in like the original release. Yeah. But then we kind of lift the difficulty. So this is like an artificially like much harder version. Sorry, you're looking around, looking over his shoulder. But yeah, so like trying to, because it means that when you take part as part of the update, whether the update is for you or not, there'll be a lot of like social presence. You might be able to tune into streams and like watch your favorite streamer take part, see who gets it done first. But it gives that, it is hard on release. You spend the first couple of days to the week watching the people be the first to complete it and actually get it done. But then after that, the difficulty of course goes away because once you learn how, and we bring it kind of down. Yeah.
A lot forces you into legacy mode. I love it.
Oh, gosh, that is difficult. But
and that's Jack's contribution, everybody.
It's gonna happen.
A lot of players in the chat have like obviously clocked onto like sort of what we've taken inspiration from. But I think I know we discussed it. One of the learnings from Zamorak was we had that sort of world first race. We had the people in rage pushing. Yeah. When you go into something and you are slightly gaining a level of difficulty, you're not really challenged because I've done it and it's 10% better, then I've done it and it's 10% better. Like imagine Zamorak launched 2000 rage. So obviously anytime players are going up against it, they're just getting smacked down. Yep. And then we get to see that level of progression on streams. Yeah. And we did it for Inferno in old school. You were flicking between streams anytime Wooks would get close or anyone else would get close, and then they get battered down, so you switch stream. It was all super exciting, and other games do it successfully. I fully believe we can do it successfully.
Right, so we have lots of questions to get through. We're going to have to be quick fire on this. We're running out of time. Unfortunately, we have a hard stop at the 3-hour mark of this stream. What I will say is there are questions that we want to get to, especially that we had prepared in terms of the state of combat, how we feel about that state of combat. We will find a time that everyone's available to do a combat panel. It's clear there is a huge discussion still for us to have that I'm sure players would love to see. So don't worry, just because we can't fit it in today, we will give you what you want. Don't worry. Want to make sure we get there. So on that, let's go to some live questions and we're going to fire through. So I need answers to be fairly brief so we can get actually the community involved in this. Firstly, will the combat achievements be a comp requirement? We talked about that. Heaven's Vibe, why are we dropping beginner? I assume that's as a tier of difficulty achievements?
Yeah, I think we just don't think we need it.
Okay.
Kill giant mole.
Neil Paddy asks a really great question. I know a lot of people ask this after Sanctum. Would we ever consider putting telegraphing on the older bosses?
Yes is the short answer. How we go about doing that in an effective way is too long of an answer, I think, to answer for this quickfire.
Yeah, it's not a simple copy-paste system or anything, is it? So, does the Kenshin 3249 asks, does the combat team have any plans to change how melee tank armor functions? Because at the moment, to them, it feels like the new primal armor doesn't really serve any combat purpose. There's kind of two questions in there, I guess, as well.
There's kind of a double there, yeah. We've kind of, as a combat team, given the okay for like things like extra life point bonuses, kind of like the Necro tank armor has, where it makes it a bit more interesting. But I think we kind of want to revitalize tank armor a bit more in general. So it's kind of the answer is yeah, we want to do something with it. We're going to part of an okay to go ahead with that.
Yeah, can I extend this slightly beyond quickfire because Mod Breezy spoke to me a little about this sort of thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the primal. Yeah.
Okay, Mod Breezy spoke to me and we were discussing that. I think it's been outlined somewhere else, like what the purpose of mining smithing update was. But when we talk about like armors and weapons, if we want to make them augmentable and stuff, there needs to be like an extra step. Like it's not the thing that you make 100 of and you throw on the G to sell. It needs to be something that you invest a bit of time to like upgrade and put it in a position, which is kind of like what your Death Warden armor is. You do not make 10 sets of Death Warden. Yeah. You make one because you do a little process and it becomes like an item. That's kind of the short answer, but that's covering some conversation I had with Mod Breezy about why primal
it's
isn't.
kind of a limitation of the terminology of EOC that primal armor and crypt loom are kind of in the same conversation because they're not really the same kind of thing. Like, it's not wrong to say that primal armor is tank armor, but it feels a bit misleading when we're talking about like Death Warden or Crypt Bloom. They're not really the same kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Bonus to Ryan from RSCO. Wow, he's structuring this. Can you flex your hard mode in the catcher personal record?
I don't know why he wants me to. It's not that good. It's like it's 3 minutes, like 13 or something.
So if any of you are out there and you want to test yourselves against one of the main combat developers here at Jagex, there you go. You've got your chance. You've got a personal record to pit yourself against.
I'm trying to get sub 3.
My personal record is 0, so you've got me beat probably already.
I wanted to be sub 3 before I was like, hey, here's my kill time. But yeah, we're not there yet.
It's fun. It's good. Look, we have a tiny bit of time, so I just want to ask one more question. And we'll lead this as our kind of lead into the next conversation we have, hopefully together very soon as a combat panel. How do you feel about the state of combat today at a very high level in terms of its balance, in terms of, like, just so the community can go and chew on something before we next talk? How do you feel about where it is today? Is there anything that's like top of mind for you?
Bang, bang, bang.
You go the other way. Go the other way.
No, go that way.
You can start.
I can start. State of combat. I think the simplicity of Necro is really good, and it could be used to improve the other styles further. I personally have some concerns with power creep, though, and think that needs to be brought down slightly, but also that we need the challenging encounters at the same time, so it's a bit like power creep and challenge. Do you bring them both down? Basically putting on my mod nerf face. I don't want to freak out players, but yeah.
Panic zone.
Other than that, we're in a good state.
Yeah, on my side, we do have a couple of powerful rewards at the top end that do need some level of balance to them. But it's mostly from what I want to see is we're making a lot of good strides in simplification. We want players to be able to really understand what they're doing. And RuneScape Combat specifically has a lot of isms. Like we call them isms, like weird things. If you cancel this ability one cycle early, you can do devotion backwards or something. Like it's just an example, but like there's a lot of isms that like to become a master of the combat system, you need to understand all these the weird ways the system plays with each other. And like I would love to see us solve that, but also almost like slightly augment it, like bring mastery into actual like officializing it essentially. And then readability. We have a lot going on. There's a lot of different visual effects, a lot of different styles, a lot of different animation styles, and I'd love to see unification over all of it. Like I want to see my character smoothly, Necromancy did an amazing job with timings. When you do an ability and you expect that ability to hit on your target, instant. That hit mark shows that damage is done. It's very, very smooth. Whereas a lot of things in the past, like Concentrated Blast is one of the jankiest anims we've got, and the hits don't line up. So I'd love to see all that just ironed out, smoothed over, beautiful looking game.
Great answer.
How do I follow? No. So I think I often talk about this. I talk about it all the time actually. Is that like since the release of Necromancy, like what did it offer the game? What has it exposed a lot of players to? And in general, like what is the most important thing? For a game in general is to like have fun, and we've got to a stage now where we've made a bunch of improvements. Like Necromancy was released, it allowed a lot more people to access combat. A lot more people do access combat. Sanctum, it's maybe a bit of a spoiler, I don't know. Sanctum is like one of our most engaged with boss encounters. It's hugely engaged with to this day, and we're 3-4 weeks since release. We've learned a lot, and in general, like how can we reapply that? The state of combat, like honestly, combat is like we have years of work to do. I think it's an ever-evolving thing, but I think our state of play now is like, hey, we're listening to you. We understand like all the player types from the person who's never touched a combat encounter to the people who have been doing it for the last 10 years, and really trying to find a way to, I guess, to please everyone. Now, obviously, pleasing everyone is impossible in most cases, but the state is kind of like that. We focus on the fun first, I think, is the most important. It's easy to get lost in the spreadsheets as well. Like we can sit there and like, is the number correct? Is the thing? But like realistically, is it fun? There was some comments in the chat. I wouldn't mind answering, but
please do. I think you've got about a minute, and then I have to
because it's come up a few times. Someone asked, "Are we going to look at Vorkath at all?" As a combat team, we have discussed that there are probably some changes we could be making to Vorkath just to clean it up, make the experience a bit nicer. I have put it in our excuse like the business term, I've put it in I've requested like time for us to look at it. Can we take some time?
We talk about it often, right?
I've pitched it, like, can we take some time to address some of the common issues? If that does get picked up, in general, it would be like don't want to use the term quick, but like a quick pass. Like, I'd look over it, see what we can fix. It's not like a change loads of stuff. We're not planning to do that. But that's just an example. Vorkaf is one of them. We, of course, understand. KK came up recently. We don't have plans to, but because of requiring Drygores for the mining stuff, people pointed out like how much of a problem KK can be, because it was designed as the first EOC boss, so it's been so long. That's the short answer.
I don't know if that's
my phone.
And Modjack's other contribution to this channel.
I can't mute my phone because it's.
So that is going to be us. As I mentioned, this is a chat that I'm sure many of you wish could continue for hours. We will find a time, hopefully a Discord stage or something, where we can get the team together. We can have that discussion. We want to follow this conversation through. I'm so sorry we couldn't fit it all in. I was worried about this timing, and there it kind of ended. So thank you all, JMods, for taking the time you could, and hopefully we can meet again soon. On that note, it's time to close out the show. It's been really awesome spending the last 3 hours with you and just spending some time talking RuneScape. This is one of the best perks for us as being JMods, is that we get this amazing community and we get to do this. So thank you. We hope you found the last 3 hours really worth your time, and it was kind of a nice addition to the main show. This is our first RuneScape Ahead, and admittedly something that came together pretty darn quick in response to RuneFest moving, but it's something that we really want to take forward. So we'll be really keen to see what you think as we look to improve it for the next time out. And on that note, going forward is the plan, right? Our next RuneScape Ahead-esque update will come at RuneFest next March. Trust me, we have plenty up our sleeves. We haven't just given all the game away now really early. We'll still have plenty to talk about there as well. Between here and there, expect more opportunities to help shape and be part of development. We've just started with things like right-click examiners being a regular part, and we're going to keep extending that too. And I just want to say, on behalf of the many JMods, not just on the team who were here with us today, who are behind the scenes, who maybe you've never even seen before, who have done so much hard work to get us to this point of having this roadmap and being able to have these conversations with you, but also to the amazing team you can't see behind the cameras here, who have done an awesome job pulling this together in such a short period of time. Thank you, and we truly hope that the last days have been a lot of fun with all the hard effort we've put into this has been worth it. So thank you for being part of our community. It means the world to us. We'll see you in Gillinor. Take care.